digital event with us.
Yo,
So
what is
welcome
going on,
to
everybody?
First Look, Matt.
Thanks.
Welcome
Hey
to a
everyone.
TTS
So I am
special,
Matt Chang.
guys.
I've been at
Let me
Xbox
just
for
put this
about
volume
7 years
low.
now. But
One
this team
second,
has been
guys.
working on the series.
So this is a special episode of this showing the story of Xbox. We're gonna get to watch the first 3 episodes, guys. I know I just went live out of the blue, guys. I've just literally told you know what? Let's go live. Let's go live, guys. Let me know how my microphone sounds. I have to change it for a second. So let me put this on. Let me put the volume up, guys.
Xbox almost didn't happen. Power On, the story of Xbox, is a behind the scenes 6-part series that takes you back to the scrappy beginnings of Microsoft's video game console. It's the untold story of the people behind the box, glitches and all. The first 3 episodes that we're going to watch chronicle the early days of the console, from the birth of the idea to the original Xbox hitting the shelves. And if you're like us,
Yep.
this will be a huge trip down memory lane.
Hey, Miss Marvel, Max
So feel
City,
free
Phantom
to
Kraken,
share your
what's good?
favorite stories
Hope
in
you
chat.
well.
And there's actually a specific chat channel just for that. So go check out
So
the
this is a
Memory
live
Lane chat
documentary, you
to
know,
talk about all
the
your
story of
favorite memories.
Xbox.
Now,
It
20
wasn't going to
years is a
happen.
long time. And while
Insane, guys.
Xbox
This is
has
going
a
to be
lot of
insane. I can't
stories
wait to watch
share
this.
in this series,
And I
we
believe it's
also want
3
you to
hours,
share
guys.
your stories.
3 parts
So
out of
hit us
6
with
is
your
3 parts
first
today.
Xbox game you remember playing, or that time you and your player number 2 pulled off the wildest win. Matt, can you remember the very first Xbox game that you played?
Oh, absolutely. It was definitely Halo Combat Evolved on the original Xbox.
Awesome.
And speaking of co-op, you know, that's where my wife and I, then girlfriends,
Just
together.
testing the audio,
And
guys.
we've been playing co-op games for a very long time.
That is so awesome.
Yeah. What about you?
I actually, the first time that
Yo,
I
Donald,
played Xbox was on the
it was
360.
it was
I
the
played
FanFest
CNET,
invite,
you know,
bro.
with the big button
Yep.
controllers.
So I don't know
Button
what's gonna
controller.
happen
love
if they
those
take it down or
controllers.
not. But this
Yes,
is
it was so
starting
much
right
fun.
now.
I
It's
miss
3
it.
hours. You know,
Now,
the
if this
documentary
is
for the
your
story of
first time
Xbox
tuning
out of
into
the
a
6
FanFest
episodes.
event, welcome. Being part of Xbox FanFest means access to
Max City,
exclusives
what's
like
going on?
First
Halo's
Look,
been killing
watch
it. Talk
parties,
that shit, my
trivia,
brother. Hope you well.
one-of-a-kind
Miss Marvel,
sweepstakes, and of
you
course,
know it.
special
Hope you
giveaways
well as
and
well.
gear.
So
Let me
much
tweet this
stuff.
shit out, guys, and listen to
It
this.
really is the best way for Xbox super fans to get their hands on sweet exclusives.
Sweet. That's right. And just to get all of the bragging out of the way, we also made some killer updates to our event experiences. You asked for it and we listened, and now we've got a theater mode where you can have both your live stream and your chat at full screen.
I know a ton of people like to chat on their phones and then watch the live stream on a big screen. So this is a huge update that we've made, and I'm excited for the fans to be able to use that. But whatever screen that you choose to chat with, just remember that we are all fans here, and we want to keep it fun, keep it friendly, and so please abide by the code of conduct. And if anybody's getting weird or, you know, making it uncomfortable, let the mods know. Questions, concerns, or if you're having any tech-related issues, direct them to our mods in the mod tab.
Gotcha. And before we get going here, there's a few things that you should expect.
Yep. Each episode is approximately 40 minutes, but don't worry, we're going to give you 3-minute breaks in between so you can go fill up that beverage.
Yeah, Max City, we got him shook, bro. Hellblade 2, the shook him. Miss Marvel talk that shit.
Xbox FanFest in the socials to let everyone know you're getting to watch Power On a whole day early.
During the episodes, we'll also throw up a few poll questions. So go ahead and answer and see how you measure up against the other fans.
Oh, and fun fact, Major Nelson is also joining us for this event today.
Nice, we've got Larry Herb as well coming in.
Give him a shout out.
Halo Infinite, deploy Halo Infinite so far. I'm loving it, guys. I'm loving it. I'm on the second part of the island now. I've just been collecting Spartan cores, taking over base, you know, so you can do the fast travels and all that shit.
In here.
Right. This is for your eyes only. So we ask you not to stream, not to screen grab.
Oh shit! They might take my stream down.
Screen grab, but that's all, okay?
All right. If we're ready, here it is. The premiere of Power On, the story of Xbox.
We'll see you on the other side.
Whatever happens, guys. If he gets striked, he gets strike. Who gives a fuck?
Video games are one of the most powerful mediums ever created. This merger of imagination and technology has introduced a fundamental evolution in human interaction. And now represents a culture of 2.4 billion gamers connected worldwide. Yes! But just 20 years ago, the console that kicked off the era of online gaming in the living room almost didn't exist.
You ever want to make hardware?
No, that's one thing that we decided.
Look
not to
on,
do.
look
The
at
idea that
Bill.
Microsoft could
Talk
ever
that
create
shit,
a game
Bill.
console was seen as a bit of a
Anonymous, what's
joke.
going on, bro?
They wear khakis and they're boring and they're office and they're Windows.
You might as well call it Nerd Box, right?
I can't
100%.
imagine how it could be better.
A new console was seen as a risky bet
There it is.
at a company not accustomed to losing.
You're proposing taking money away from Windows in order to fund some game system?
That is an insane business to get into.
It was fear, uncertainty, and doubt.
We're gonna make it, aren't we, sir?
This is the story of how a passionate group
This
of
is
gamers
crazy, man.
forever changed the course of a corporate titan.
They saw the future.
Broadband internet to the television set.
Like, you can do that?
And then Bill says, we should do this. We should let these guys do this.
And the journey to get that controller into our hands.
This thing is going to be the most badass thing you can imagine. Fire at will.
Think about the way you could tell stories with that.
No matter where you are in the world, we can all be part of one bigger community.
We need this.
Yo, the Matrix demo. Listen, the coalition helped me with that Matrix demo.
But back then, this was
It's
like
gonna be
science fiction.
the coalition is gonna be
We're
masters.
sure how we were going to do
We
it.
knew about this.
Watch TV.
Oh, God.
Oh shit, the Connect.
No, Microsoft.
Gamers are not going to be tolerant at any level of bull at all.
The risk here was enormous.
You're always just one catastrophic bug away from not making it.
I remember thinking, hey, maybe we're in over our heads.
There's a new contender in the video game wars.
Xbox is going to be the future.
Truly the future of video games.
Xbox.
Taking over the living room.
Limitless, connected digital entertainment.
You guys never understood. The company is going to face fierce competition. Sniper!
It's a ticking time bomb.
Makes me very nervous to actually play this for you.
Xbox getting a major overhaul.
A bold vision for the future of gaming.
Talk that shit, boys. Talk that shit. Only on Xbox. What's good? Master of Unreal Engine.
I'm
Facts.
Bill Gates, chairman of Microsoft. In this video, you're going to see the future. Microsoft first came up with the Windows concept back in 1983.
Virgil Blizzle, what's going on, bro? Z Black Rider, what's good?
The graphics interface
Facts, bro.
is an integral part of this new generation.
Coalition knows
TPC
it
is much
better than
further
Epic,
than
bro.
they've gone before.
When I came to Microsoft in 1987, the average age was 27, and I was 27. We were an amazing young company with an amazing young founder in Bill Gates.
He knew business better than anybody out there, and he also knew technology. He was able to synthesize things that nobody else in the industry could.
It was incredibly fast moving. It was the kind of place where people didn't hold back. For someone who just wanted to really let loose and grow and learn, it was an amazing place.
Bill Gates and the team back then were the disruptors, which was exciting and palpable.
We just thought of ourselves kind of the rebels, kind of, you know, where the big companies like IBM were these huge companies, but we were this little rebel group of hackers, you know, doing this cool work. I'm very optimistic about where we're going. But that really changed in 95.
Windows 95 has taken over computer stores.
That's crazy amount of people going crazy for Windows 95. Look at that shit.
Computer users packed into stores dying to get their hands on one.
That shit's
When
crazy,
Windows
bro.
95 launched, it was like a coming out party for the whole company.
Microsoft made a thing that everybody in the world wanted. It was like air to me. It just was. It existed and you needed it.
Today's world, you can't make it without a computer.
Has thousands of programs that some of us may need. I can run 3 or 4 applications at the same time.
Windows 95 is so easy. Even a talk show host can figure it out.
Oh shit, Jay, what's going on? What's going on,
By
Jay?
the late
Talk
90s,
that shit.
Windows was dropping $1 billion.
June 25th, that's my birthday, guys. June 25th.
was the most profitable business in the history of the human race. I don't think there's ever been anything remotely like it, unless you count the Spaniards going to the New World and like literally hollowing out a mountain made of silver.
Microsoft, which has a business relationship with NBC, is the most powerful engine in the new age of computers, a giant cash machine, and it strongly disagrees with the government.
In the late 90s, we were sort of the bad guys, the Death Star.
The perception of Microsoft, I think, generally was not great. They were in the middle of the Justice Department monopoly
crazy shit.
issues.
Obviously, a bit
We
older
were
than me, I
the
believe.
big
So it's
gorilla
crazy,
in the
bro.
room on most subjects. And so people viewed us as sort of the
Z
big
Black
bad
Rider, 100%. This is only
By
the first year in with
1999,
Unreal Engine,
90%
and
of
it's
computers
going to be insane, man.
worldwide used the Microsoft Windows operating system. They were untouchable, without comparison or viable rival.
We've been successful in the operating system world, built a huge PC business, built Microsoft Office into this big business. We were the tech behemoth.
Windows overtook that industry and transformed the world. But during that period, disruption was coming from all sides.
For decades, Sony had been a Japanese electronics giant with a history of producing personal and home entertainment hardware. And then, in 1994, Sony struck gold with the PlayStation, a gaming console with unparalleled success.
The launch of PlayStation really thrust gaming into popular culture in a big way. And Sony saw an opportunity for gaming to be even bigger and touch entertainment.
What Sony discovered was a console was really a Trojan horse to the living room. And once that device got into the living room, it could be a multimedia entertainment device.
Sony was putting different things into the home. They're putting a hard disk here in like a DVR. They're putting memory here. They're putting a processor here. And if they could connect all those things together,
You piece of shit.
A potentially existential threat to Microsoft.
Without further ado, let me introduce to you the next generation PlayStation technology.
Even before Sony launched PlayStation 2, they were just
That's a hell of a
creating
console,
this
that was
perception
PS2.
of inevitability.
Hell of a
PlayStation
console.
2 was the next big thing, and anything in its
Where
way
do you
was
watch a Geekhead? You gotta have access to FanFest.
They said our new PlayStation.
You can watch
So
it here, bro. Enjoy it.
That's going to replace the PC.
Sony was showing a slide at trade shows and to our
Fox
customers
Donald.
of a future home that was full of PlayStations and didn't have any PCs in it.
Which was like shooting cannonballs over Microsoft headquarters.
It was an incredibly arrogant thing for them to do, but it was pointed too. I mean, that was a very serious threat.
In the 90s, Microsoft was a paranoid place. And when somebody said Sony's going to put a PC in the living room, that got everybody's attention.
That DVD and that
And if
PS2 was a
Sony
game
at the
changer.
point of locking down the living room, what was Microsoft going to do?
One possible answer was brewing not from the top executive ranks, but from deep within the Microsoft corporate
DirectX.
structure.
Been going on for a
renegades
minute.
on the DirectX software team who were working on tech to help developers create games for Windows, and who were united by a fervent belief that games were the future.
I was leading the DirectX development team with
Yeah, Seamus
one of
loves
my
the bread
colleagues
stuff, bro.
on
He
the
loves that
marketing
shit.
side of DirectX, Ted Hasse. You know, the question that we were starting to ask is, where was all this graphics technology headed? Windows had won the desktop operating system wars. So we're starting to ask where there could be threats or opportunities in the future. We quickly narrowed down to games and an all-encompassing entertainment platform for the living room as being an opportunity for us.
Otto had carefully built a career at Microsoft, and he had already taken a risk because Otto could have been an important programmer in a legitimate Microsoft group like Windows or Office. Instead, he chose to be in this DirectX group because he was passionate about graphics.
Ted and I both had folks on our teams we felt could bring
What's going on,
additional
Raiden Blade? Hope you well,
brain power
man.
to the conversation,
Jenkins, yeah,
including
Jeff
Seamus
is a fanboy,
Blackley.
but talk that
How do
shit,
you
Seamus.
describe Seamus? He's just a piece of work. One of the most brilliant people I've ever met.
Geekhead tomorrow is releasing.
Amazing mathematician.
Shane has really embodied the heart of what it meant to be a game developer.
When I saw arcade games, when I was
Elusive
little,
Mage,
I
what's
saw
going on,
computer
bro? Hope you
space.
well.
My first idea was not, I want to play this game for hours. My idea was, how can I make my own thing?
One of Ted's employees was Kevin Bacchus, who had a financial and market analysis background.
Kevin's like a Vulcan in the best possible way. His interface to the world is entirely intellectual.
That is correct. We had day jobs for DirectX, but a lot of our thinking was how we could build brand new technology that was single-mindedly focused on making the very best games.
Four of us, we played games and we love games and we wanted to make them. That really meant something for us.
They were working on DirectX, a set of software tools that standardized game development across PC hardware, and which was readily embraced by PC game developers. But the team saw a way to push DirectX further, with an idea that could revolutionize the foundation of console game development.
With Windows and DirectX, we have the platform that everybody wants to do the work on to make the games. We already have the entire infrastructure of everything you need to create all this technology sitting on our platform. If we could only create a single hardware standard, a box designed just to run DirectX.
It's crazy how the old style look. That's like the
Gave us
Nintendo
the
pad, bro.
that we could produce better games than Sony and Nintendo and Sega.
Talk
At
that shit.
time, Japanese
Talk
game
that
consoles
shit.
had very proprietary chipsets, and they just didn't work very well for Western developers.
Metal
The
Face Doom is a
instructions on how
fun
to use it
fest
would be
thing.
in Japanese. What the DirectX group was proposing was there's a better way to do this. We're going to use PC architecture that you're familiar with, which is just going to work out of the gate, so they could spend more time crafting and building their games.
They had an incredibly developer-friendly story. You already know how to write these games. If you've written them for PC, you can write them for console as well. That message is pretty powerful.
For us, this was about advancing the gamer's interests and the game developer's interest, which would advance Microsoft's interests. So we decided that this was the right time to try to build support for the idea of Microsoft building a game console. At the same time, nobody ever believed that Microsoft would actually have the audacity to attempt such a thing.
You have to be FanFest to send you
We
a
were on a
special
journey
link.
to get support for this crazy idea around putting a
They should
DirectX
send
powered
if you
box in your
sign up for
living room
FanFest,
to deliver
you should have an
interactive
email.
content.
We were trying to crash meetings and get traction on this thing.
We were an annoyance.
Nobody knows who the hell we are. And we were constantly discovering super important people who were roadblocks or who wouldn't get it and who didn't think games were important.
You're proposing taking money away from office development in order to fund some game system?
These people dreaded having meetings with us.
No surprise, displacing the stated direction
I'm
of
not
a
surprised.
company at the scale
Different
of
ball game,
Microsoft
different
was not a
department,
trivial undertaking.
from PC to console.
Realizing that
Oh,
who you
shit,
knew
check Mr.
inside of
Agent
Microsoft was
47.
at least as important as what you knew, we brought in the guy who could try to build support for the idea of Microsoft.
Yeah, that's only way
our
today.
game
Tomorrow it'll
console.
be on
Matt
YouTube.
Brown.
I had a lot
No,
of
this is live stream,
time
bro. This
spent
is actually
talking to
live.
different teams.
It might get
and
taken down,
working
bro.
With kind of long-term
Bro, it's only
strategic
like 10
planning.
minutes, bro.
Nat had an
15 minutes.
incredible network of connections. He opened up a lot of doors for us.
Nat was sort of like our Obi-Wan Kenobi, this wizard figure who would show up and go, oh, I know who you need to call. You need to talk to the guys in this division or that division. He knew the structure to Microsoft.
It's been nothing but a fight to figure out how the place works.
One of the first things Nat said was we needed a proper code name.
Something that would plant in people's head and take
Anytime,
on
bro.
a life of its own.
Nat
Yo,
said,
Dad, what's
isn't
going
it
on?
really a DirectX box in the living room? I'm like, yeah, it's like a DirectX box. That's what it's about.
And we just put up on the board, let's call it the DirectX box.
So we had this awkward thing in our mouths all the time. It was a DirectX box.
And I remember saying, that's too long. It's just Xbox. And we liked that.
That was our code name as a stand-in until we had something better come along.
We built a business case that showed how big this business could be. To get buy-in on that, you have to distribute it. You have to go socialize it. My trick was getting our stuff in front of executives to make them say, I want to understand
It's
this
just
business.
crazy high old start. Oh
The
shit!
team set their
Predator.
sights on a logical choice.
Arnold and
A
Carl
senior
Brothers.
executive who spoke their language, literally.
Your metal face Doom.
Ed
I think we
Fries
all want
was
that
a
shit.
Microsoft lifer. He joined as an intern.
Ed had been critical in the development of Office, one of the biggest franchises, even at that time, that Microsoft ever had.
He had this passion for games. He loved games. He programmed a game at a very early age.
When most high schoolers were getting their first minimum wage
Suicide
jobs,
Kings, what's
Fries
going on,
was
bro?
already
Hope
cashing
you're well.
royalty checks from his first game.
So let's take a look at this high-quality product.
Oh shit!
A clone of the hit arcade game Frogger.
The Frogger,
Aptly
yeah.
named Froggy.
Froggy.
Original, as you can see. Yeah.
When I left Office to go
That's
run
some
the
high
games group,
quality
people told
shit.
me I was committing career suicide.
Thank you. That's it. Good night.
They said, why would you leave Office, one of the most important parts of the company, to go work on something no one cares about? And when I got there running the games group, I found out they were right. No one cared about what I was doing. And that was awesome.
In 95,
Wow.
the games group
Flight
was really
Simulator.
small. It was like 20 people. In a lot of these tech companies, there's not as much respect given for those other disciplines.
Microsoft at the time didn't care very much about games. I think we were just more of a hobby.
We were gamers working in like the bowels of some Microsoft corporate building. Our goal at the time was to push Windows as a gaming platform.
I always felt like I was doing
Oh shit!
underdog
You talking
stuff,
that
and
shit in the
that's actually
chat,
what I
guys?
really enjoyed. I enjoyed trying to bring Microsoft from behind.
Keep talking that
in
shit,
PC
Miss
games.
Marvel and
After Windows
Metal Face
95
Doom.
launched, we had to wear these T-shirts that said "Microsoft knows games."
You know, it was
Wow.
obvious we didn't really know games. Otherwise, we wouldn't have had to put it on our shirt. You know what I mean?
Hey, that's
Choose
marketing.
your
That's
favorite form
tactics.
of world domination.
Back then, you had to
in
do whatever
Age
you have to
of
do to get into the console space.
After a couple of years, we launched Age of Empires.
You have to lie.
It
You
was
gotta
kind of
finesse.
crazy.
You gotta
the
finesse your way.
fascination that game became.
And it was one of the signature PC strategy games for years.
That was actually a huge success for us. And we started to do some acquisitions, and we were growing our publishing business.
As we started to ship more quality games, we finally got to the point where we were respected in Microsoft, and people were like, okay, Microsoft actually does know what it's doing when it comes to games.
Ed took a broken games business and fixed it and made it profitable and found a way to do it at Microsoft.
What's going
These
on,
are
Jake?
difficult,
Hope you well, bro.
double
We
black
were
belt
talking that
like
shit
keto
last night on
corporate
Twitter.
moves.
Steering
love
the
it.
tiny PC
Bruce Lee
games
shit.
division
I love
into
it.
a profitable department had won Ed the trust of Bill Gates. And yet, Fries himself wasn't satisfied.
Our PC market share was growing into the teens. And at the same time, we weren't doing anything in the console space. And that, to me, seemed like a bit of a waste. You know, there was this huge market out there. One day, these guys from the DirectX team walked into my office. And they pitched me on this thing, the Xbox. And basically what they pitched was a disguised PC. I thought, oh, this is great.
Xbox.
This is like a bridge for me to get to the console business.
This box that will run a native version of DirectX, which is the part of Windows that's really focused on the game developer, was revolutionary.
It's going to be easy to port to this machine, easy to take my games and make them run. Unlike running on PlayStation at that time or a Nintendo machine that were just very alien hardware compared to a PC.
Ed understood all this game development is happening on the PC. We wanted to make a console that was specifically designed to be easy and fun to make games on. And if the most creative people did their best work on your platform, that's really good business. That's a good idea.
Basically, I said, you know, I'm in. I like this idea. I want to help you guys.
The DirectX team, these were troublemakers, upstarts. They didn't have these reputations that Ed had as sort of born and bred to work at Microsoft.
They didn't really have any political
Yeah,
clout.
Phil's done a great job so
was, I
far.
think, a
Like
big
the
win for
beginner
them
of
to get me
last
on their
generation,
side.
he was making his way through the ranks. As soon as he got a seat
This
at the
unlikely
table,
alliance would bring the
the rest
Xbox
is
team
history. You know
closer
what's
to the
happened there.
biggest test of all. Pitching Bill Gates. And that opportunity would come sooner than anyone expected.
This
When Sony unveiled the PlayStation 2,
look at it.
they
Look at it,
started
guys.
talking about how they were going to be the death of the PC.
A new concept that we'd like to introduce going into the next century, our EE, the emotion engine.
It was like, what a great name. Holy crap, you know, an emotion engine.
Our new CPU architecture,
significantly outperforms even the fastest Pentium 3 architecture that's
Ciao,
in the
Gazan.
market
What's good, bro?
today.
They showed beautiful fighters, models twirling around. They showed 1,000 delicate rose petals falling from the sky to show just how many polygons, just the raw math that this behemoth of a device.
Bro, they were talking that
processed.
shit. And
And
that's
guess
what you
what?
do.
It's
You
got the
gotta talk
power
that
of
shit.
1,000 suns behind it.
For Microsoft, that really crystallized what the stakes were. And Bill asked the DirectX team to do an analysis of these claims that Sony had made.
As you can imagine, getting on Bill's calendar was next to impossible. I felt a huge sense of pressure to make things happen and make them happen quickly.
Otto and Seamus
Yeah,
provided
definitely
a
do,
fantastic
definitely do,
breakdown,
guys.
very technical, what the emotion engine did and did not do, which claims were true, which claims were exaggerated. And at the end, they very audaciously slipped in a little mention of the fact that, you know, we could build a console too. And we put together what we thought at the time was a pretty compelling argument.
Gates had been curious about the viability of a Microsoft console, but it wasn't until mid-March of 1999, just 1 week after the formal announcement of the PS2, that the possibility was finally starting to percolate amongst the company's elite at its annual leadership retreat.
Semiamu was Bill Gates' annual Think Week. To think
Definitely,
about
guys.
strategically
They did a
what
good
certain
job coming in,
projects did
you know,
they
new in
want
the
to
console
greenlight.
space.
One of the programs that you do at this 3-day offsite is a idea generating effort.
We all sat in a room and people could propose a topic for a breakout.
We would write down a question and we'd stand there with our question in front of us.
People moved around and everybody voted what topic they wanted to work on.
And the question I wrote that year was, what if the cable companies like AOL and Sony all got together?
Hey, what's going
and
on,
all
Caroline?
pooled all the subsidies
Hope you
that they
well
were
as well.
paying to acquire customers. They could put out a box for free because it'd be so ubiquitous and so
Look at the
highly
shit. Look at the
wanted.
shit talking.
That's all I said.
If they could get it into the home as a game console, it would be like the comet that hit the Earth and wiped out the dinosaurs, meaning the Windows PC.
I got a big line of people behind me on that one, and including Bill, and off we went to start talking about it for a couple hours.
And so we had a sort of a 2-hour thrash on pros and cons of video game console. What was the state of play with Sony?
And coming out of there, Gates just called it. He wanted me to look into what we should do about it.
Thompson's big question resonated with
Bill
Gates,
Gates, good
and
shit,
a
bro.
call went
Good
out to
shit.
the entire company looking for anyone who could answer.
It was sort of an all-points bulletin to senior managers all over the
Oh,
company.
guys,
saying,
there's 6
"Anybody working on
episodes
any of this
coming
kind of
out,
stuff?"
and today
And
there will
so
be 3
in March of
episodes
99,
with
the
a special
DirectX
stream.
team and every other group in the company that touched games in any way was brought together for a meeting to talk about whether we should have a comprehensive game strategy for the entire company. We took that opportunity to say, listen, not only do we have a perspective on this, we actually have a presentation, a PowerPoint deck that we'd like to share with everybody that says what we, the DirectX team, think
A
the
lot of
company
guys
should
came
do.
from the
And
Dreamcast,
obviously that
including
created
myself.
a great stir at the meeting. Nobody was expecting that. But it was a great surprise to us to find out there were other parts of the company that had aspirations of doing the same thing.
I was running a team in what was known as the Windows CE group. Windows CE was an operating system designed to run devices like handheld computers or even game consoles via partnership we struck with Sega around their last game console, which was the Dreamcast. We had a pretty capable hardware team.
Some of the guys in that group had worked
Sega
at
Dreamcast,
video.
guys. Oh man, you know my favorite game of all time is Shenmue 1 and 2.
And that was a legitimate game console, albeit one that was not a success in the marketplace, but it was a legitimate
Oh shit, the
console.
Panasonic 3DO.
Together, we had the hardware expertise, and we had a proposal for what Microsoft should do next in the console space.
Obviously, these guys think they know how to make a game console and that they should do it instead of us. We opened the door and Bill's interested in a game console, so now they're going to edge us out and they're going to step through the door.
They were funded, they had a
Fox,
name, they had
Max
leadership,
Face.
they had executive support.
Their argument was, we already know how to do this. What do these kids know? Go with us.
The DirectX team was young and hungry, full of tech know-how and vision. But Windows CE was well known within the company and had experience on their side.
Rain
Suddenly, it was
G4,
a
what's going
race
on,
to try
bro?
to get the
What's
most
good?
legitimacy inside of Microsoft,
You did kiss my ass.
where the winner was
Kiss my
going
ass,
to be
dude.
the one to bring a game console to market.
And it came to this big battle with Bill.
Yeah, Radiant Blade, don't worry about it, bro. I'm just trying to stay quiet as possible
seem to
at
do, which
certain
is
times.
pit two groups of smart people against each other. Classic Bill Gates move.
The stage for the cage match was set. The DirectX and Windows CE teams would battle for the right to make a Microsoft game console in front of founder Bill Gates.
Oh, shit.
To the victors belonged the spoils.
Having Bill in the meeting was always a fantastic thing, as well as increasing the tension at the same time.
Somebody's confused. Somebody's just not thinking.
He was legendary. If you went in and you're full of shit, you get shut down.
No, you don't understand. You guys never understood. You never understood the first thing about this.
So, we tried really hard not to be full of
He is brilliant, but it was a very aggressive, male-dominated culture. Lots of expletives, super, super smart. But man, if you said something stupid,
Well, I'm done.
Round one. From my group's perspective, we felt good. We thought they didn't really understand the console space. So frankly, we discounted them a little bit. Ready? Five. We proposed something that aligned very much with how business was done in the game console market as it existed. You got to meet the market where it's at.
The WinCE guys were sort of like preaching the model, but the model isn't very interesting.
In their pitch to Bill, as we're sitting there horrified, they're basically talking about recreating the 3D or making a game console similar to everything else that's on the market. And we're like, you don't enter a market and copy what the competition does exactly. You enter a market to disrupt it, to do stuff they can't do.
Power Stone was amazing. Ready
Windows
to Rumble.
CE presented,
Crazy
and
Taxi.
they talked about this
Sonic.
device and blah blah blah.
And
And
obviously
then the DirectX
Shenmue.
team got up
Even
and
Resident Evil
presented
Code
this
Veronica.
vision for Xbox.
There were two things in our plan that we thought absolutely critical to the success
believe
of
Nemesis
Xbox
as well
and games on Xbox,
was on that.
which had never been done before on a game console. Number one, a hard drive that would be important not only to save information about the player's state and what accomplishments they had done, but also so they could store large amounts of data somewhere and be able to access and change that over time.
I remember there was a big debate about should there be a hard drive in it or not a hard drive in it. We were the not hard drive folks. We didn't see the benefit of it.
The second component that we thought was absolutely critical was Ethernet. The Sega Dreamcast was basically the first console in history to have any kind of
look at that
online
controller,
component
guys.
to it. But theirs was dial-up internet using a modem. That was the technology of the time. We realized that that was a short-term solution. What we wanted to do was to point towards the future
Soul
and
Calibur as
integrate
well.
Ethernet
You're correct, bro.
and high-speed broadband internet to the television set. We wanted to bet on the future rather than on the present.
The ability to connect machines
That was
to
a
each
hell of
other
a
and
move,
to
that
the
was.
internet was
Hell of a
core
fucking
part
move.
of the DNA.
We were pitching a very traditional game console, and the Xbox team proposals, I understood it. It sounded to us like, hey, we're going to take a PC and we're going to go build a console out of that. And it just didn't seem credible. It's just not the way the business worked.
Final round. 5.
These two groups came at the idea of building a game console in very, very different ways. So this meeting got really contentious.
We have to watch these guys like on our plan and tell us it's not going to work and talk to Bill about how game consoles really work. I'm waiting. I'm like, come on, Bill, kill him, shut him down. They're full of shit. He doesn't do it.
I wanted to see the Bill Gates of old. I wanted to see Old Testament Bill Gates, the guy that was famous for throwing people out of meetings and telling them never to come back and telling them that they're the dumbest person in the company. To my horror, Bill sat back and stroked his chin and was very thoughtful. Bill said, well, I think both teams raised some good ideas.
But he didn't seem really that impressed.
Mm.
In front of that audience, we realized we had to bring out
The
every
Colosseum.
the guys from the DirectX side knew that you don't go to a Bill Gates review without showing something really spectacular.
Smart. That
And
was
so
smart.
leading into this meeting, none of us had slept for like a week.
We made this little device that had relatively old PC technology with a game console-like case on it. And we modified Windows with like a hack that like tears open a hole from the bottom up and exposes the hardware.
It was a bunch of PC components and a game controller, and it was literally just held together by chewing gum and tape.
Hey Robert, what's going on, bro? I'm well, bro. Hope you well.
And this was like, in the back of our car or like, on the floor in a conference room that we were making this stuff.
An ugly timer on it that showed Windows booting up from power.
Booting a PC 20 years ago would take like 3 minutes. It could take longer. It could take 5-6 minutes. These guys played with a PC, pulled stuff out that wasn't necessary, changed the BIOS.
And I turned it on, and so it booted in like 3 or 4 seconds.
Bill Gates almost jumped across the table. He was so excited when he saw that.
Bill immediately looked at us.
Why the doesn't Windows boot like that all the time? Yeah. Bill wanted to see it multiple times. He's like, turn it off and do it again. Turn it off and do it again.
You got to test it.
I saw his jaw drop.
You have to test it.
This is a guy who knows more than most people in the world will ever possibly know about PCs. Saw a PC, probably for the first time, come on immediately. And we had a software emulator of a PlayStation that had been written for Windows. So you can imagine the executive's surprise when we took a PlayStation disc, stuck it in the Xbox.
Talk that shit.
And immediately Tomb Raider came on screen in all its glory.
Yo,
it bridged the gap.
That's wild.
Believability. It made the idea of Xbox seem tangible and real and achievable.
Yo, that's
the
how you do
DirectX
it.
guys were stuntmen.
That's
and
how
they
you
played
do it.
the game a lot better.
We frankly, I think, underestimated.
And you guys called me a bootlegger. You're dead. You called me a bootlegger. I learned from the best.
Windows CE guys literally said, it's not fair. We weren't given the opportunity to make hardware. And somebody said,
eliminate him.
Well, nobody told them to build hardware, but they did.
Unfortunately for the Windows CE team, they brought a PowerPoint to a demo fight.
Looking back on it now, I really do think that Bill looked at us and saw some aspect of himself or the early days of Microsoft, and that's what he thought was going to work.
Bill's reaction was, you guys are proposing that it's doing good things for Windows and it's based on Windows and we get Windows in the living room. That all makes sense. You're proposing that we spend $500 million on it. You need to make this presentation to Steve.
How much do you think this advanced operating environment is worth? Wait just 1 minute before you answer. Watch.
Steve is one of the most enthusiastic and energetic people I have ever met in my life.
Look at him
That
dancing out,
energy and
motherfuckers.
enthusiasm that
Getting
you see
jiggy
on
with it.
stage
Nah.
is 100% authentic.
At the time, if the biggest fan of Xbox was Bill Gates, the biggest opponent was Steve Ballmer.
Steve, as a good businessman, liked to make money. He liked, big bold bets, but he liked big bold bets that would pay off.
This was right at the time when Bill was transitioning the CEO role to Steve. And they had already agreed for a couple of years that if Bill came up with some crazy idea that cost a lot of money, that Steve should get a chance to say yes or no on it first. And that led into this final meeting where we really had quite a large group of executives across the company.
The room was packed. There were a lot of different constituencies there, all the way from the field sales force to the most technical side of the company. You had a lot of people very, very interested.
Steve's a big guy. Bill's in there, and you're in there with these two super famous guys who hold your destiny. And Steve is really upset that we wanted to take this risk.
Ballmer understood very well where Microsoft's bread was buttered and where the money came from. We were a company known for productivity software. He didn't want some video game, or even the fact that we made video games, to threaten the very lifeblood of the company.
Steve looked at the Xbox idea and saw insanity. He went to his whiteboard. He said, okay, what's this going to cost? What's the hard drive going to cost? What's the Ethernet port going to cost? What's the graphics chip going to cost? And he totaled it all up and said, there's no way you got, what's your reserve for returns? Reserve for returns, what does that mean? Well, we freely admitted that we didn't understand the first thing about hardware, but we were gamers and we were game developers. Our entire careers have been built around games. We knew that 3D gaming was taking off and online gaming was just around the corner.
Focus, what's going on, bro?
The best and brightest in the game development world, they were moving all their thinking from the PC to consoles. We had the opportunity to go create something that was going to take all of the equity, all the goodwill, all the technology, and all of the programming tools that had ever been created to make Windows applications and carry it forward to the living room. And that was the product that we were proposing, Xbox.
Looking back at that moment, what Steve and Bill were seeing was the future passing Microsoft by. You know, Microsoft was thought of as this dominant company of the era, but success or even survival was anything but preordained. If Microsoft didn't grab this opportunity, that Microsoft would be on the wrong side of the future of tech.
They made everybody step back for a second and think.
The console business was something that we needed to seize. I think that that was where Bill and Steve realized that they needed to move forward with Xbox.
An incredibly electrifying moment.
We'd finally convinced Steve. Bill was convinced.
100%, guys. I agree with you guys in the comment section.
I think Bill did have a view that software running on hardware in a family room could really bring some unique experiences into the home. We could start with video games, but it could go many directions from there.
It was really an opportunity to recapture the soul that Microsoft had at the beginning, to create that revolution, to create that new platform.
We were going to do something no one else had done. We were going to launch a console from a software company. Microsoft had done nothing like that before.
And then it became clear that there was just some really big challenges for us.
At the beginning, it was about credibility.
We had a task ahead of us to ensure that we were taken seriously in the game industry.
This equation of power, performance, and price. You have to come correct on every single part.
Teddy Myson.
You know, to be successful.
That was
there were
his name.
so many tasks that had to be done on
I
both
wonder
the
if they
hardware
showed that
and
piece of
software
shit.
side. We realized that we needed to have a leader. It was clear to all of us that that person was Rick Thompson. He had asked the best questions, the most insightful questions. We wanted him to be part of the answers.
So Rick was brought in as the seasoned senior executive who had experience in hardware with peripherals, mice and keyboards. And he had to construct a plan and a go-forward strategy.
My comment at the time was, I'm not big enough for this job. But a couple days later, Steve Ballmer calls me into his office and says, let's get this straight between the two of us. This is your job now.
You're making a big splash. You say you're getting into this consumer market. You know, if that doesn't work out well, it could really give the company a huge black eye, and that would be very difficult.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure he's not part of that department anymore. He's probably moved to a different department.
We could lose on this project. And
So he's
for
not, he
me,
doesn't
it was
he
fear,
doesn't control the
uncertainty, and
Xbox,
doubt,
or
because,
he's on
you know,
over
business
the
guys
saying
gotta try
over
to figure
that
out a
part
business
now.
model with my
So
little team of people
wherever he's gone, or wherever department,
You got 4
he won't
people
be a
coming
problem
over from
anymore.
DirectX. None of us actually knew the rules of the game that we're playing. And we basically just stood there and looked at each other and said, oh, like, now what do we do?
They both got 5G Black Rider. Right. You got a couple of minutes, guys. Go take a piss. I'm gonna go take a piss. We'll watch chapter 2. Shout out to 35 plus people in here. Shout out to you guys, man. We'll be back in 2 minutes. Go for a piss, guys. Get some water. I'll be back. back, guys. Got some water, took a piss, and we're back. 40 seconds, we're back on part 2, chapter 2. What are you guys talking about? Damien, what's good?
The idea that Microsoft could ever compete with Sony or Nintendo
Microsoft is going to make a game console.
was seen as a bit of a joke.
Might as well call it Nerdbox, right?
We needed to prove our credibility. This thing is going to be the most badass thing you can imagine.
Dude, we need a metal X, and it's got to have a green eye, shooting a laser out. I want it to blind people.
The game developers are not going to be tolerant of any level of bull at all.
I opened up the first machine, I'm like, what the? Oh my God, what happened in there?
Seamus is backstage soldering as the auditorium is filling up.
And then it's in front of the boss. The boss is coming on.
The Microsoft brand is on the line. The Microsoft name's on the line.
Bill's not going to be happy.
And it was terrifying.
He's screaming at us. You guys have lied to me. You guys have played me for a fool.
And he says, this is a insult to everything I've accomplished at this company.
It was terrifying. I thought my career was over.
There's a new contender in the video game wars.
Xbox is going to be the future, truly the future of video games.
Xbox.
Taking over the living room.
Limitless, connected digital entertainment.
You guys never understood.
The company is going to face fierce competition.
Sniper! It's a ticking time bomb.
Makes me very nervous to actually play this for you.
Xbox getting a major overhaul.
A bold vision for the future of gaming.
Meet the Microsoft Mouse Line. There's a mouse for everyone, whether you're an expert or first-time buyer. Let's start with the basics.
I joined the hardware group.
Yeah.
I ran it for 13 years, hired 300 people into the group, and by 1999, we were doing $600 million worth of business a year.
Rick was working for me running our hardware business. Think mice, keyboards, we had some speakers, we had this thing called Interactive Barney.
That's super duper.
At some point, Steve Ballmer shows up and says, Rick's going to go do this business exploration. I want you to help sort of supervise and support him.
Steve Ballmer tells me that Xbox is my new job and is very convincing about it. Having been in hardware all of my career at Microsoft, I need to understand how this is going to be a good business for us.
Do you ever want to make hardware?
If you want to be a great software company, you have to be only a software company. You can't dabble in other things.
The idea of building a game console from scratch, the risk here was enormous.
We really understand what it is to be gamers, but we're panicking like we have to figure out how to build the hardware.
We had no idea what we were doing. None. Couldn't have been less qualified to build a console.
Everything about making a console is hard, including taking an upfront loss on the hardware. Sony,
100%, bro.
Sega,
Red and Blade.
Nintendo, they
You got
design
fed
their
to the
own
pigs.
hardware. They manufacture it
Talk that
themselves,
shit.
and they sell it at a loss and make a profit on games. That's how the business model works. So for Microsoft, that is an insane business to get into.
Our P&L said we were going to lose $2 billion for the privilege of maybe later on, somewhere way down the road, we'll make money. And once you started it, with all the commitments that you make trying to convince the game developers to make Xbox games, you can't really stop it.
What have you done? What madness has claimed you?
We made it the point to Steve Ballmer to say, if you guys start this thing, don't come back 6 months from now and say it hurts too much.
Any new console hoping to have even a chance of success needed to win over a group of notoriously tough critics, game developers. And getting past those gatekeepers would require Microsoft to make a flawless debut at the world's largest game developer conference, GDC,
games sell consoles, and so in order to sell consoles, we had to win
Games does sell
confidence
consoles.
of the developers.
The only place I think we could have ever announced Xbox was GDC.
The next GDC would take place in March of 2000, so the Xbox team had only 11 months to design and deliver a functioning prototype.
Time is running out for Microsoft to get on the board. If they didn't announce by GDC 2000, they were going to be ceding too much of the playing field to Sony. They had to do it.
And there was still one massive problem to solve. Who was going to build the console hardware? The plan had never been for Microsoft to do it alone.
The only way that we could actually get Xbox made properly was to go to the people that were really good at building hardware.
Rick was trying like hell to find somebody to partner with us, people had expertise that he knew we didn't have.
Companies like Dell and Compaq and NEC and Toshiba. We start these meetings, and most of the guys would look at me and go, "Who are you? And should I believe you or not?"
It'd be epic, guys.
Really, we're going to do this.
And the OEMs all, laughed in his face. Like, we understand enough about the console business to know that all the money is made on the software. And you're coming to us and asking us just to make the hardware while you make the software. We're not that dumb.
Rick's point of view was, we have no chance of doing this ourselves. And so then the question became, how do we partner with Nintendo? Or maybe we should partner with Sega.
Sega seemed like a natural choice because of Microsoft's previous collaboration on the Dreamcast. But there was pushback against the partnership. Dreamcast had never been competitive with Sony, and Xbox needed to be unlike anything Microsoft had tried before. That left one last great hope.
With Nintendo's 64-bit technology, now Mario lives in a 3D world, and you can make him go wherever you want.
As we began to understand the business model, we really appreciated Nintendo. People don't buy consoles, they buy games. They want to play Mario, they want to play Pokemon, they want to play Zelda.
Accepting the award for Legend of Zelda Ocarina of Time will be Shigeru Miyamoto.
And you look at Nintendo and you find the Spielberg of the video game industry and Miyamoto, and you go, wow, this guy's unbelievable.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
I knew I could convince Microsoft to outright buy Nintendo. I mean, it would be an amazing accomplishment because it's the national treasure of Japan.
So if you buy Nintendo, you get credibility in the Japanese market. You maybe even get Miyamoto.
Was there a way to make that happen? Because that would give us instant credibility.
If Microsoft were to acquire Nintendo, they would have gotten two things. One was the hardware, and second is a massive games portfolio.
From Rick's point of view, if you could acquire Nintendo, you would immediately have access to the best game library in the world, full stop. So I made an introduction to the people that ran Nintendo of America, told them what we were interested in, and then we made a trip to Kyoto.
And who do you think you are barging into my office?
But I could tell from the first meeting that there wasn't a chance this was going to happen. They were highly skeptical.
Cards.
They were like not even remotely interested in selling the business. I never got past square one on trying to acquire them.
That to me is the pivotal point for Xbox. Oh my gosh, we're actually going to do this ourselves. And that scared the crap out of us. Because once it became a do it ourselves
Halo's at 87
project,
right now.
now the
Good
Microsoft
shit.
brand is on the line, the Microsoft name's on the line, it's going to be big and public. We're going to have to do a lot of things new. We're going to do hardware at scale. We are no longer in the Microsoft playbook.
An unprecedented challenge called for some change-ups and new additions to the team. Ted, Nat, and Otto left for other pursuits, while Thompson brought on someone new, someone known within Microsoft for delivering complex projects against impossible deadlines.
One day, this guy comes into my office and he sits down and I'm like, who are you? And he says, I'm Jay Allen. I said, who's Jay Allen?
I don't think it'll get to an 88,
everybody knows
guys.
who I am, right?
We're
I don't
really
think
on the
so.
cusp of this digital entertainment revolution. So while for 25 years now, Microsoft prided itself on making the world more productive. Now our challenge is to blend that with making the world less productive.
He was seen as a futurist that had a lot of credibility internally at Microsoft.
There was, the famous internet memo.
He sent Bill Gates this memo that basically said, hey, Bill, we got to wake up because this thing called the internet is coming, and it is going to transform commerce. It's going to transform society, and it's going to be powered by broadband connections. And so we made a huge, bold bet by putting a broadband connection in the back of the Xbox. Everybody thought we were nuts.
You have to remember, back in 1999, less than 5% of the US households even had broadband.
But I remember
Yeah, that
Jay
was
saying,
Fox
we're
at the
going to
time.
bet on the future,
Gears of
not
Truth
against
was
it.
good, bro.
He had a vision for where online gaming could go and what Xbox could become. And Bill paid attention to Jay.
Well, it's very hip to be on the internet right now.
With the right team together, Xbox needed the right operating system, and
Deploy
that was a little
100%.
tricky. And political.
It's just amazing how popular PCs are.
Windows had been the catalyst for Microsoft's meteoric rise.
Games, word processors, calculators, calendars, all running faster than ever.
Bill Gates had been won over to the team's
Multitasking.
pitch on the understanding that Windows would power
I don't think
Xbox.
what's going on, bro.
But the
This is the
team knew
second
that
chapter.
Xbox needed to be leaner than a PC. Windows was an all-purpose tank. Xbox needed a street racer.
One of the things that makes Windows great is that you can do lots of things at once. You can be running Word next to Excel, next to IM, next to Photoshop.
And so the idea was, if we're going to put a video game console in the living room, it's going to run Windows.
Once or twice a week, we'd get pings from all sorts of different groups around Microsoft. Office was kind of the notorious one, saying, hey, I hear we're doing a console. I hear it's going to run Windows. What do I have to do to get a build of Office running?
Yeah, Halo's back
I
to
bet
an
people would like
87.
to edit their
Good
Word
shit, guys.
documents
Good
while
shit.
sitting on the couch.
Well deserved.
What's the rating of this? Okay, so we had to do two things. One, we had to tell these groups off. That is not what this is. If you actually think people want to sit back on their couch doing spreadsheets, it's not going to happen. At the same time, we needed a lot of code from these groups. So we had to tell them off nicely.
You're dismissed.
The services that Windows provides are really valuable, but the most important thing for games is speed. If you have an operating system taking 15% of the CPU and half the disk, you're dead.
One possible solution was to use just the Windows NT kernel, essentially the brain of the operating system. This would leave more space and flexibility for developers to program games. There was just one problem with that solution. The Xbox team didn't have access to that kernel, and the Windows team wasn't about to share it.
Here we are in the computer room that holds all of our server machines.
If we'd have gone and asked the Windows team, they would have insisted that we take Windows as is, no modifications, subject to their approval, and we just could not bring that baggage over. So we had to steal it. We stole it. We stole it, yes.
I have it running on this machine here.
We actually grabbed it at night off of a server when no one was looking, about 3 weeks before a major Windows release was going to happen. We brought it back and just started hacking and slashing stuff out of it. We had to refactor and cleave off functionality to make this box so tuned that the games could be brilliant. What started out as a 4.5 megabyte working set for the kernel got that down to about 200K.
Wow.
So a tiny, tiny, tiny fraction of what Windows is actually made it over to Xbox.
You could call this the evolutionary approach.
It becomes clear that what we're going to do is not what Bill and Steve thought they had approved.
Xbox would have the
Yeah, deploy. You can get
heritage of
armory.
Windows,
You can get your
but not
armor from the
actually
single
Windows
player.
itself.
The new operating system was
I've
streamlined,
gotten a few.
but nothing like the Windows-powered version the team had pitched to win the technology bake-off against Windows CE. With GDC 2000 just 1 month away, for Thompson and the team, it was the moment of truth. Time to call one final meeting. A do-or-die presentation to Bill Gates on Valentine's Day to ask if he could open his heart to a Windows Lite version of Xbox.
We had to go to Bill and tell him that what he wanted most out of this, he was not going to get. This wasn't going to run Windows.
I can't imagine how it could be better.
Oh, Bill's not going to be happy.
This was the final meeting to either approve the Xbox or cancel it. One of the highest stakes meetings I was at my whole time at Microsoft.
Which is the Valentine's Day Massacre. It's like a 4:30 meeting. Rick, Thompson, myself, Ed Freeze, Jay Allard are the 4 Xbox folks there. Steve's there.
There was a whole outer group of people too. So this room was packed.
Well, about 15 minutes late, Bill walks in.
He's holding the PowerPoint presentation and he walks up to the table and he throws it down on the table and he says, "This is a insult to everything I've accomplished at this company."
leans across at me and says, "Why are you trying to kill Windows?"
You guys have lied to me. You guys have like played me for a fool.
I start to try to argue for this, why we can't have the normal version of Windows. Bill doesn't want any of it. He doesn't want to hear it. He yells at me, shuts me down.
You got a lot of alphas in the room and all alpha males. And so there's a lot of pounding the table and you're wrong, I'm right.
By then, Jay is up. He's ready to fight. And so then Jay goes in. Then Robbie tries to talk to Bill. And Bill yells at Robbie.
If I'd had glasses on, I would have needed windshield wipers on him because he was spitting at us so hard and so fast.
Bill would yell at us for a while about these different things. And then Ballmer would take over on the business case. And the business case looked terrible.
By now, and the reason it's called the Valentine's Day Massacre is because all Valentine's Day activities are now off.
The candles at home, they're melting, and we're all missing dinner.
That's crazy, guys. That is crazy. These guys paved the way, man.
And your meeting gets to this sort of crescendo. And I said, okay, well, then let's not do it.
Krumo, what's
We haven't
going
announced
on?
anything.
Appreciate it. First time seeing your name.
Another hour.
And then somebody says, what about Sony?
I know many of you guys maybe
Microsoft
watch the
had
show
owned the
afterwards
den in the
or
office.
don't really engage in the chat. Don't be shy, guys. Talk that shit in the
thought
chat.
of Sony owning the rest of the home
We all
was
family.
offensive to Bill. But the Xbox, it's the antithesis of everything that Microsoft is. It takes all of the hardware burden onto us. So it's really hard to make business sense of it. That's equally offensive. And what's going on with Bill and Steve was figuring out which of those was least offensive to them.
Bill kind of pauses and he thinks and he says, I think we should do this. And Ballmer's like, yeah, we should do this. And then they start getting excited and it starts going back and forth. We should do this. We should let these guys do this. Bill's like, okay, we're going to give you guys everything you asked for.
Gunter,
Really
what's
want you to be
going on, bro?
successful in this project. You have all my support. And
Molden,
that part of the meeting took
no
5
worries, bro.
minutes.
Anytime.
And I turned to Robbie. I'm like, Robbie, that was the weirdest meeting I've been in at 15 years at this company.
All I remember is Kevin Bacchus coming by and basically saying, we're doing it. We're doing it.
The system was going to get built. Hundreds of millions of dollars would be spent marketing it.
Even Ballmer said, once we say yes to this, we're saying yes to this. This is real. This is as real as it gets right now. We're going to book the speech at GDC.
Bill Gates was going to go on stage in front of the world and announce it.
And it became very real
Kenta,
when Rick
what's good?
Thompson
Kenta Wilson.
sent an email saying that Xbox had been approved for an initial funding of $1 billion.
Boom.
With $1 billion on the line and less than a month left until GDC, Xbox's big debut had more riding on it than ever. The team set to work creating a prototype and recruiting game developers
Chilling,
to the
bro. I hope you're
platform.
well, Gunter.
A monumental task for a software
Hope you're
company that
enjoying
didn't
Halo
have
as
much
well.
street cred.
When it came to console gaming in the late 90s, there was no perception of Microsoft. They weren't in the picture. But when it came to the PC side of gaming, Microsoft had a reputation.
Ed Freeze had built Microsoft Game Studios and kind of organized the studio structure by genre. We had like a role-playing studio. We had a sports studio.
We were doing golf. We had a basketball title and we had a baseball title.
But it was around the time we shipped Age of Empires that we started to really get respect.
You've built a glorious empire.
It was just a beautiful game. It was beautifully scored.
Age was a great game. It was a ton of fun. Everyone loved it.
Age of Empires is a grand franchise. But if you talk to somebody that likes to play Super Mario Brothers, it's really kind of a different customer entirely. And I think that they didn't necessarily view Microsoft as being in the gaming business.
My favorite
To
Mario.
recruit console game
Mario
developers
64.
to its unproven platform, Microsoft had to innovate development tools that would rival
Hi,
the
Skull. What's
competition,
good?
making game developers an
Enzo.
offer they
Talk
couldn't
that
refuse.
shit.
We were all about what we were giving the game
Yeah,
developers. to
PYD
work
will
with to
definitely play
create the
Halo
greatest games
multiplayer once
ever
I'm done with
made.
the single player.
PS2 was really unfriendly environment to developers. Seamus Blackley and Kevin Bacchus and Ed Freeze, they were saying, we're going to fix this. So more of the money is going on the screen, not just trying to figure out the convoluted hardware. And that was like, really? I mean, it was like oxygen.
This was going to do things that the PlayStation can't, which meant to me we could tell more stories, create characters that people care about, and create worlds that would be very difficult to do on the PlayStation.
Bucks,
We know at this point we're heading
Bucks.
toward Xbox announcement at GDC. Game developers have to be excited so that they could talk to their other friends in the games industry and tell them, you know what? Xbox is legit.
The innovations offered in the Xbox created a promising future for console game developers. But to deliver that future, Microsoft still needed to complete a working prototype to debut on stage at the Game Developers Conference.
When Microsoft first started talking about doing a game console, everybody's willing to listen, but you need to see it.
We had to create a prototype game console that was obviously not going to be the final design of the hardware because we didn't know what Xbox was ultimately going to look like, but at the same time, looked nothing like a PC.
I had started working with the Hardware Guys Rapid Prototyping Group, which was literally in the parking garage. And they had like built a temporary structure and a bunch of parking spaces and like made it like a little office. So I went to this area where the artists were, and they were having a remote control car race in the office. Around the desk, going right around. And that's how I met Horace Luke.
In a lot of ways, I work very scattermined.
Yeah, it's going,
I don't
man.
really work on a linear path. Most of my days spent with markers and paper and just
Ben X
doodling.
Morgan, Halo's
I
fire,
remember
bro.
the guys coming in about 6 or 7 in the evening when everybody's leaving the office with this big motherboard from the 90s, this gigantic board that had all these PCI slots on it, and said, put this into something that is presentable on stage. And I still remember staring at it going, what do I do with this thing? The traditional Microsoft product was very ergonomic centric. The mouse, the keyboard. Though the Xbox, it was very different. It was about storytelling.
There's a lot of people focused on what's this set-top box going to look like in my living room. But that wasn't what we cared about. Horace was really interested in what was happening when you got sucked through that screen.
The role of the designer, it was how to tell the story at a glance. That Microsoft is about to go into a space that is brand new to what Microsoft was accustomed to. Telling people that this thing is going to be the most badass thing you can imagine.
I would go down and visit Horace, and there would be scraps of prototype drawings and other pieces of vision work that he would have.
The whole idea was this nuclear reactor almost, trying to hold this energy that's inside that is so intense.
He's like, dude, we need a metal X, and it's got to have a green eye, you know, shooting a laser out.
And he's always going to use sound effects. So he's going to be like,
I wanted to blind people, because that's kind of how Horace would talk about these things.
That sense of escape and that sense of capability and power is what we try to create with this green portal. And inside there, everything is possible. That was how we wanted people to feel when it's on stage.
You could have shown up to GDC and plugged in a PC and tried to tell people it was a console, and not a single person in the audience, I don't even think we would have believed that that was really going to be a console. So we knew we needed to show something beautiful.
People got to be able to tell in an instinct that this thing is called Xbox.
What we ended up building was a 40-pound machined aluminum X that had been buffed to a chrome
Yeah, Raiden Blade,
finish.
Peaky Blinders, bro.
Big,
That's the kind of shit they were on.
shiny chrome X's. They were like these incredible sports cars.
We ended up taking literally a solid hunk of aluminum and carved it with a 6-axis CNC machine. That box took 2 weeks to carve and 1 week to polish.
Building those metal X's was very trying.
Drew and I just after work,
Facts.
get a can of kerosene, get a rag, and just keep buffing it. Rub, rub, rub until that thing was polished.
Somebody brought it out into a meeting and took a towel off of it and showed it to us. And I was like, that can't be in people's living rooms. Everyone's like, calm down. It's a concept.
And I'm like, okay,
Shit looks fire, man.
awesome
That
about
shit
the
looks
green eye.
fire.
How am I going to fit the components in there? And what we ended up doing is, if you look at a PC, there's like this main motherboard. So we stuck the motherboard at this, on like one angle.
We had to shave off the edge of the motherboard because it just didn't fit.
We soldered the hardware together ourselves and borrowed space in the lab.
I'm sure people looked at that and they're like, whoa, it's like this polished X. It's got this, amazing green eye. But it was the world's messiest PC build. Like, it was components like just jammed in there. And you're like, is it going to work? Oh, well, work this time. I guess that's the one we'll take with us to GDC.
Yeah, PYD, bro.
It's sometimes possible to forget about
The
the
games are
people
just
who
getting so
actually
much better
make the
with the
games. So we're here in San
FPS
Jose,
boost and just the
California,
power
for the Game
of
Developers
Series X and
Conference
S.
to remind ourselves that without these people, we'd still be playing checkers.
Announcing Xbox at the Game Developers Conference was like every Christmas morning rolled up together.
Video game developers are upping the ante on creating realistic games. Microsoft upped the competitive ante, announcing a new concept, codenamed Xbox.
At GDC, the idea was that Seamus would go on and basically be the demo guy, talk about Xbox, show the demos.
But this was the first time that Seamus had stood in front of an audience of game developers and gamers since the launch of Trespasser.
Before he came to Microsoft, we knew Seamus from his stint at DreamWorks on Trespasser.
It was a personal passion of Spielberg. He was very involved in it.
I'm in Steven Spielberg's office, and we're going to do a game that could be a spiritual successor to Jurassic Park that takes all of the principles of game design that I thought were important.
Seamus really hit on this idea of trying to use physics to simulate a world populated by dinosaurs.
I wrote a big physics system in order to make an island that was completely physically simulated.
And they say every leaf and every branch that you walk into in the woods is going to move. And that was kind of a dream that we're like, yeah, that sounds good, but how are you going to do that? How are you going to make that perform? Well, the end of the story was we're not.
And I made every mistake in the book. You can read about this online, all the stupid things that I'd managed in that project. And we shipped it before it was done. We shipped this broken game right into the jaws of the birth of internet gaming sites and the first fan sites. I personally just got destroyed online. And I had never seen anybody destroyed online. We know what that's like now. I thought my career was over. Everyone who was present in San Jose at the Game Developers Conference, they knew my failure with Trespasser. I remember sitting in my hotel room and I had to convince myself to just go show my face at this thing. And it was terrifying.
The day of the unveil of Xbox, I took 3 Xboxes with me, like these metal X's, 1 for the stage and then 2 for as like, you know, what happens if this fails.
We hand carry these things down in transit because these things are fragile. The idea was showing live demos, proving that we actually had nothing up our sleeves.
The game developers are not going to be tolerant of any level of bull at all.
All the things on the screen were specifically to show game developers that this Xbox was far and away better than any of the other consoles that they'd ever seen before.
And they have to be done in such a way where it's clearly interactive, clearly real, clearly running on the hardware as advertised.
We hand carry them down. We set them up. We turn them on. The first one doesn't work.
I opened up the first machine, like I'm like, what the is going on here? Like something jiggling around that wasn't quite right, and you're like, oh my god, like what happened in there?
So then we set up the second one. It doesn't work either. And the third one, none of them work. Seamus is backstage soldering, trying to get everything ready as the auditorium is filling up.
He was looking on the verge of green. He just looks sick. You know, I was like, well, maybe this is stage nerves, but then I realized, you know, well, maybe it's also because all of our demo machines were completely deconstructed.
We're panicked out of our minds because Seamus went on stage to talk to the most cynical audience in the entire world.
If you took a photo from the stage of GDC, you would see, you know, gamers and game developers, and they'd all look very excited. But underneath that layer are, you know, the most critical people you've ever met, waiting to hate that thing that you created.
Kevin was underneath the stage with a video switch box that could switch from the Xbox prototype that was on stage running the demos to one that Drew was standing backstage doing everything the same way I was doing it, so Kevin could switch between the two of them in case it crashed. And then it's in front of the boss. The boss is coming on.
I'd like to ask Seamus Blackley to come out and give us a look.
And then somebody decided we're going to make him put on a special leather jacket that doesn't really fit him.
We don't have the box, but we do have the leather jacket, so we're ready to go.
Well, we do have one box. This is our show box.
Look at that shit.
So now, as I walk out on stage with Bill G, the full weight of my failed game, Trespasser, all of my dreams in the game industry, the ridicule that I
Oh,
thought
shit,
I was going to
GameSpot.
suffer at the hands of every game developer who saw me fail to deliver this great thing. All of that pressure came to bear. We get up there, and I run the first demo. What I'm going to show you now is an example of advanced lighting techniques that are possible under DirectX 8.
We made a bunch of little toys that sat around your desk, like a little merry-go-round with dynamic lights.
Complicated shadows drawn across very complicated objects. There are reflections, there's environment mapping going on. And all this is happening at full hardware rate. Another great example of that is our water demo.
You can now see caustics on the bottom of a pool. All those things come from the power processing on a per pixel basis. And that's really what the big differentiator was for Xbox.
This demo took, I think, a day to get running. And I can't underscore the importance of that enough. This takes Xbox from being a programmer-driven console to being an artist-driven console, a design-driven console. And that's
Look
really
at the
part of
controller,
the
guys.
The demo, it had a joke in it.
There's a classic Microsoft picture in the background.
Oh yeah, baby, that's texture resolution right there.
These were really smart demos and really ambitious. But when we saw the physics demo, I was like, wow, how's that computing?
In my high school physics class, I was scarred with the image of chain reaction as demonstrated by the old ping pong ball and mousetrap demo.
Physics was something that everybody wanted to do. Seamus had tried physics with his Jurassic Park game, and it didn't work so great.
Oh, shit.
But now you were seeing those ideas actually working right.
A great example of the CPU doing all of this collision, all of this physics at the same time that the graphics processor is rendering the scene for us.
Physics is cool.
The Raven and Robot video, you could see the photorealism.
The huge chrome robot that basically was motion captured by a female character called Raven.
The level of physics simulation that was happening there, how much the CPU was being taxed, you knew as a developer, this thing
Remember
was
the movie
really, really
Real Steel?
powerful.
I was like, wow, we have got to get on.
Dope ass movie.
I was very surprised by the Xbox. I was expecting it to be kind of cool, kind of like a stripped down PC, but what I wound up seeing
What up,
very
Cliff?
much excited me.
These demos were instrumental and so critical to the importance of Xbox and people believing in it.
To get honest, candid feedback from our peers, it was exciting because we saw the enthusiasm for Xbox and we knew that we had accomplished something.
Xbox is really going to be the king of the game stations. This is like a PlayStation 2 on steroids.
People are kind of giving us high fives, saying congratulations, and I'm like, do we actually do this?
I've never seen so much advance in one
Yes, we did, Gabs.
particular piece of technology before.
We watched it in cinemas.
From that moment on, we had credibility with publishers and with game developers because it was clear we did know what we were talking about.
And the next thing that mattered was that Bill Gates showed up for it. That signaled to the industry and to the rest of the world, Microsoft as a company is backing it with all of its might.
Thank you very much.
Thanks.
Me too, Sapo. I just went I went live 15 minutes
Despite all the
before.
fanfare surrounding Microsoft's Xbox, industry analysts say the company is going to face fierce competition.
When Sony's newest video game console, the PlayStation 2, went on sale in Japan earlier this week, consumers were frenzied with excitement. They snapped up nearly 1 million units at $370 a piece in the first 3 days alone.
We were at a disadvantage compared to Sony and Nintendo because we didn't have the legacy of building fun.
And Sony, oh, their movies, they're cool, they're awesome. And Microsoft is like, they wear khakis and they're boring and they're Office and they're Windows. And it's like...
For over a year, the team had referred to the top secret new console only by its codename, Xbox. But now, they had a chance to christen it with a bold new name, one that wouldn't evoke Microsoft's corporate image.
Naming is the worst part of marketing. It's the hardest thing. Nobody ever
Anytime, bro.
100% loves
Anytime,
the
G's
name.
of truth.
Ever.
Marketing would go to the same brand people that they would use for naming components of Windows, people who knew nothing about games.
Paid hundreds of thousands of dollars to go through the most rigorous system of naming, tested against all of the right customers, and they came back with list after list.
We had hundreds of names that were generated.
Friction, Cyclips,
and they were epically terrible.
Norbo,
Infinity.
Zod, XOD.
Shock factor. Oh my god.
Oh shit.
Fire
Fire plug.
Equestria. Vibe with a Y.
Xantra. Xantra is absolutely a blood pressure medication.
Frontier.
Og, OG.
Velvet.
Zigzag.
Zimulate.
You see, anytime you're naming something, you have to play the kindergarten game that everybody plays with their children. You know, okay, I'm going to give my child this name. Now, how are people going to butcher that their first day in school, right?
Carpet ride?
I was
Carpet
having
ride?
conversations with Robbie about, Robbie, Xbox is
Come
a
on,
really good
guys.
name. No, you can't
What
call
the
it
fuck
Xbox.
is
That's
that?
code
Aladdin
name.
or some shit?
We don't name products code names. We need a new name. It's like, well, okay, we'll look again. I would look again and come back. Xbox is a pretty good name.
I remember our final meeting with the naming experts. They came in with the perfect name. We've tested this extensively, and it's a winner. We tested it against the name Xbox. It blows it out of the water. Great. What's the name? With great fanfare, they unveil 11X. You know, because it goes to 11.
Well, it's one louder, isn't it? 11.
I looked at the marketing people looked at me, and they said, all right, we'll get on Xbox.
Where can you go from there? Where?
I don't know.
Nowhere, exactly.
That's some funny shit.
There was a big debate internally about whether we should call it the Microsoft Xbox or just Xbox.
We did a lot of blind research where we would bring in gamers asking questions about what should the role of the name Microsoft be on this console. First response when we mentioned Microsoft was they rolled their eyes. A video game console from Microsoft.
What? Microsoft? Doing a console?
First of all, it would take forever to boot up, and then it would probably blue screen.
And then we asked them questions like, hey, if PlayStation were an animal, what animal would it be? It would be a lion, the king of the jungle. If Microsoft were an animal, what would it be? It'd be a spider. It could kill you, but you also just want to step on it.
If the name
Right.
Microsoft smothered the brand, it just was going to be a non-starter.
The idea that Microsoft could ever compete with Sony or Nintendo or even Sega was seen
Look
as
at
a
the
bit of a
boxing
joke.
game.
You might as well call it nerd
Talk
box,
that
right?
shit.
Bill Gates was the richest man in the world. They were such an important tech force, but what they weren't was in the living room. They weren't an entertainment company.
Among gamers, 0% of people believe we could do it.
I was a journalist, and I thought, I don't know how Microsoft is going to make a console worth.
Can you imagine walking up to Bill like, hey, you know what the biggest liability I have in my new product launch is? The name of your company.
The last one, guys. The last one. A couple of minutes. Go take a piss. Do what you have to do. I'll mute it for a bit, but do what you have to do. Do what you have to do, guys. Get yourself some water. Go take a piss. Come back and we'll watch the final episode. Shout out to every one of you guys. Shout out to every one of you guys. Other than what's going on, bro. Halo Infinite is the shit. Legit. It's legit. I love what it done. So far, it seems to be my favorite so far. Let me complete that. I've just got to the second part of the island because I completed the first section. I'm doing the second part. I might push on the story this time. Get some of the Spartan cores. I got my grappling hook is fully upgraded. I'm working on my shield. And then push on the story, see how good it is. I'm playing on. Yeah, this is the final episode of Lucifer Mage, and 3 more episodes will be. I think all of them are coming out tomorrow. This is just early access. One more minute, guys. One more minute. And here we go. Facts, Ben X Smokin. Facts. Your others think they're crying like bitches. Crying like bitches, bro, on Twitter. Soft motherfuckers. Straight up. Yes, so far it's been a great documentary. There's one more left, Joey. I believe all of them are coming out tomorrow. So it's cool. It's good so far. See some good insight with the Xbox. So far it's been more about the Xbox, the first one. I'm not sure what's the next one's gonna be. And here we go, guys.
Let me find it. Let me watch it real quick.
This is that crazy advert. Who remembers this?
It's really good.
That's crazy, that guys. That is crazy.
I love it. The ad was polarizing, and it did end up getting banned. Stations would not run the ad because it was, so shocking for people.
There was tension for the company to be doing this gaming thing because it was really different than really the image that the company was trying to cultivate. Some of the stuff like that commercial, I don't think senior leadership saw until it was done.
We don't talk about Microsoft Xbox. Let's talk about Xbox. Because Microsoft was good on the funding side, but bad on the branding side.
And if they wanted to go market it like they market Windows and they market Office, it was a deal breaker. It was not going to be successful.
The games industry did not speak the same language as Microsoft.
But if we were going to do this really hard thing and not lose billions and billions of dollars forever, we had to get it right.
People had to have the belief that they were working with the Xbox team. And if that meant there was something slightly unconventional that had to be done, the Microsoft bureaucracy wasn't going to get in the way.
There's a new contender in the video game wars.
Xbox is going to be the future, truly the future of video games.
Xbox.
Taking over the living room.
Limitless, connected digital entertainment. You guys never understood.
The company is going to face fierce competition.
Sniper! It's a ticking time bomb.
Makes me very nervous to actually play this for you.
Xbox getting a major overhaul.
A bold vision for the future of gaming.
The Xbox is a breakthrough game console that ships in fall 2001.
Most console companies start working on the next console as soon as they finish the current console. So 5 years, 6 years, 7 years. So for Microsoft to go from announcing in 2000 to being on store shelves in the fall of 2001 is kind of insane.
Before Xbox landed on store shelves, the team had to run a gauntlet of very public deadlines. A hardware rollout in Las Vegas at the Consumer Electronics Show. A first glimpse of Xbox games at Microsoft's GameStop event in Seattle. And finally, an event that brought the entire global gaming industry together to see what was new and judge it mercilessly.
E3 is the biggest moment of the year for games. For new entrants, it was really important to show up and make a good impression.
That E3 was critical for the Xbox, but a lot of what you're showing is beta software and beta hardware.
Hardware that's not proven yet, or probably not even finished.
A lot of things at E3 can go wrong.
Adding pressure, the lead executive on Xbox development, Rick Thompson, had just left Microsoft, which meant Microsoft's mission to quickly deliver an industry-changing game console needed a new leader.
The idea of finding somebody else externally didn't make sense. We had a schedule that is crazy to begin with. The project just didn't have the time for that.
Oh,
Nor did we
shit.
think that somebody externally could
You
sort
know
of
what
fit
that
into
is.
Microsoft to make this happen. And so I concluded that it was something I needed to do.
A new challenger enters.
Sort of a fateful decision because it led to the worst 18 months of my professional career.
It's a hard project. I mean, what we were doing is something that is intensely difficult.
Robbie was the grown-up. What was Robbie's role?
We were a young group of kind of ragtag kids.
Let's go ahead and take the car.
Indeed, he is, Ben.
What
Max
the hell's
Payne.
that? You know, I got a demo to do up here. I don't think Robbie should be seeing this.
What we needed more than anything else is we needed an adult in the room.
I was part of Office when it was smaller, and then as it grew big.
Robbie also has a sense of propriety, and I don't think we had a sense of propriety at all.
The opportunity here way outpaces that opportunity. I think is very exciting.
He was the one inside of Microsoft that Bill Gates trusted with all the complexity and the cost and the risk involved in doing something like this.
Robbie's a good guy. People can trust him. Doesn't break his word. However, everyone who comes into games can't be prepared for what it's like because it's an entertainment business. The software doesn't just have to work and have the right features. It has to entertain also. This is hard.
I had no clue what I was doing. I didn't play games. The business model I barely understood.
We are launching an entirely new business competing against two established competitors in one of the largest entertainment industries in the world.
I was learning something new every single day. And that meant, obviously, I failed most days too.
And I think the next 6 to 8 weeks are going to be super exciting. A little challenging.
I didn't think about how to plan for going from 20 people to 2,000 people.
We went from 4 people to a dozen people to hundreds to honestly thousands involved in some way with the creation of Xbox.
It was crazy. I mean, it was no time at all before I didn't know everybody in the organization anymore.
When I think about it today, it just makes my head kind of spin sideways.
Every week, I would hear about somebody I knew in the game industry that was moving up to Redmond to work for the Xbox.
We just said, this all has to get done. We need bodies. So we hired people in bulk. We brought in teams of people.
I remember thinking, there's a lot of people changing their lives for this effort. It's either got to be something that everybody believes in, and they're willing to uproot their families and get behind this initiative, or it's going to be one of the biggest cluster of all time.
Look at them
It became
graphics.
clear that we needed our own place because we were just going to bust at the seams.
So Microsoft has this beautiful campus and all these beautiful buildings and everyone works together. We were not part of that.
We went to this campus called Millennium, which was still in Redmond, but pretty far away from Microsoft.
Part of that was we needed space, but part of it is like we need a few miles away from main campus to get some breathing room to do something different.
We were deliberately a renegade team.
They were rebels inside of the Microsoft empire.
We were kids in our early 20s who loved video games and could not believe that Microsoft had given us jobs to go create them. And we were all kind of growing up together.
The thing about games is it's Hollywood for nerds. You have your star directors, you have your Ferrari driving rendering engineers.
Outrun, guys.
And after a full day of working on making games, we would get together and play games. And there was a little bit of a weird culture of not leaving, which I think was maybe not the healthiest.
Maybe like a college dorm room.
Talk that shit.
Your social circle was Xbox. Your family was kind of Xbox.
But we all had a common
Fox, Raid, and
purpose
Blade.
and passion around games.
Being able to do something very different and revolutionary was where you were getting our energy from.
Because we were still young, we had moments where we were like, wait a minute, like, am I the best person to be doing this?
It was definitely a whole bunch of kids making decisions above their pay grade.
You had a bunch of passionate people who weren't necessarily 100% the most qualified
Joey.
people to be doing the jobs, running as fast as they can to make this thing happen.
We were young and we were naive.
You know, I always call
Tony
it the
Ross
best
is
funded
dead
startup
from
ever.
94,
Me,
guys.
in my 20s, you know, I had millions of dollars of budget, and there wasn't really any oversight. It was a little bit of the Wild West.
You know, I had to negotiate all the components that went in, hard drives, power supplies, the circuit board. Here I am, this kid, negotiating these deals that are hundreds of millions of dollars.
There were definitely some terrible decisions being made. But on the other hand, that level of freedom, you know, made Xbox happen.
What resulted was sort of a weird combination of craziness and genius.
My recollection of that time was being so fascinated by watching this big company around us try to wrap its brain around what
He's
it
the
meant
guy
to
who
be an
delivered Halo,
entertainment
guys.
We didn't have a lot of interdependencies with the rest of the company.
It was Robbie, right, that had to go over to main campus and deal with Microsoft people.
One day, some executives came to visit the studio, and one of those people who came was Bill Gates. I showed him my cinematic tools and how I wrote scripts and how I laid down cameras in the engine. Bill spent time with Marty O'Donnell, our audio director.
Chief, whatever you're gonna do, make it quick. Raining aliens! Oh, Jesus, why you do this to me?
The hopes of all the Covenant rest on your shoulders, Chieftain.
He spent time actually.
That's the actor. I forgot his name now.
Some of the themes
What does
from
it come in?
Dia Tat. Dia Pat.
He went to go see our art department where one of our 3D artists was sculpting a character in clay, making a maquette. And at the end of the Bill visit, we got in a conference room, the leads of the studio, and there was a pause. And you can see the magnificent machine that is his brain calculating down the Microsoft org chart from him at the top all the way down to the crazy artists in this studio
Metro, that's the
in a
one.
gravel pit, literally. And Bill leaned forward and he said, "So there are artists who work here?" It really was a cultural
cool,
change for the company.
Xbox was already forcing people within Microsoft to think differently. But what really mattered was changing public perception. Behind the scenes, software engineers were hard at work building Xbox's capabilities. Now, the hardware team had a chance to win over the doubters on a big stage at the Consumer Electronics Show in Las Vegas.
CES was a trade show where companies from around the world would come to unveil the latest in technologies.
A lot of buying decisions and retailers got made at that show for the holiday season. And so we had a lot of proving to do. The press was skeptical, gamers were skeptical. You don't know how to do this stuff. You've never done this before. Good luck. The gaming industry is not a believer.
While Microsoft works on the insides of the new Xbox, it focuses an equal amount of attention on the outside.
I was the creative director of Xbox.
Horace Luke is the man. Horace Luke is the man.
What Horace had to do was take the thing that we had produced in hardware and then figure out some wrapping around it. First time we ever showed him, like, hey, you're going to need to put this board that we're about to manufacture for, you know, millions of consoles into something that looks good. He's like, what the
My office was where everybody brought their ideas, from the technology team to the design team to the management team.
At the time that we were building the original Xbox, there were no other consoles with a hard drive or an Ethernet port.
So how do we put something around this that vents heat, that survives a drop test, and looks cool?
You have to fit all of this, of course, into a box that's not going to be giant sitting in your living room.
It was a constant battle between the different groups. I went through thousands of different sketches, trying to jam it and shrink it in every way possible into a box.
I remember him saying, like, well, maybe we just got to slim it down. Like, you know, we'll just dress it in black.
Everything was very aggressive looking. The console itself was large. It was bulging on the top.
It looked like the engine cowling on a Dodge Hemi. It was the physical embodiment of power, like no other console's ever been designed like this.
It was quite a miracle to fit everything in that box. Looking back today, you say the thing is huge, but in comparison to the PC of the 90s, it was tiny.
It is a small miracle that we actually were able to pull this off. And it looked awesome.
The 2001 Consumer Electronics Show is packed with every new gadget and gizmo about to hit.
Look at the gadgets there, guys.
CES
Look at the old school
2001
gadgets.
in Las Vegas, in the convention center hall. Bill Gates was there.
CES will actually give us a better idea of just where Microsoft is going to fit into the gaming market.
For the very first time, Microsoft was going to get to show off its final Xbox hardware design.
Good morning. Welcome to CES.
Everybody felt like we were on the verge of doing something special, historic.
For the first time, let me now unveil Xbox.
But when you show up as the third entrant into the space with well-established competitors, You have to break out. You have to be bold.
How do you unveil a product in a way that might surprise the world and get the world to see Microsoft doing something differently?
If you smell what the Rock is
cooking.
The Rock says we decided to bring The Rock to CES.
There was honestly some disbelief, like, Bill Gates.
Angry Therapist, what's good, bro?
What's going on here?
Thank you, Bill.
It was really like muscle-bound Hollywood meets, gamer geek of the tech world.
Just might appear that The Rock and Bill Gates don't have a heck of a lot in common. Well, The Rock's here to say that can't be farther from the truth. The Xbox is everything The Rock is. Cutting edge, powerful, exhilarating.
And they were funny together. Like, it actually worked.
And they looked like they were best friends.
I mean, The Rock doesn't impress easily, Bill, you know that, but I'm pretty damn impressed with what we're seeing here today. And considering that this Xbox at this moment is only running on 1/5 of the system's power, it's very impressive. Bill, do you have any idea what The Rock would be like if he were only running on 1/5 of his power?
Well, I would think that...
It doesn't matter what you think, Bill. I'm sorry, Bill. It's just a force of habit. Rock apologizes.
It went well. We showed nothing technically, but it started to build the excitement.
The Rock is still with Xbox, guys.
We really like the Xbox a lot. You throw in an 8 GB hard drive, a 10100 Ethernet adapter, and you basically have the most powerful system on the block. The Xbox is really slick.
With excitement building around the console, Microsoft was under tremendous pressure to build a portfolio of hit games before the Xbox launch.
By the time they had announced that they wanted to do Xbox to the time when we needed to launch was an incredibly short period of time. We didn't really have the luxury of saying, start building a game from ground up. That was almost impossible. What we were looking for were games that were partially in development, ports already in development. We went out and started to look for developers all over the world.
A barnstorming tour across North America, Europe, and ultimately Japan to create some sort of excitement around the console and convince game developers in particular that we could be successful.
All right, boys, let's roll.
One day we presented a new idea from a small game publisher that had come to us and said, hey, we want to dust off one of the 2D games that we had done for PC. We're going to really invest in it. We think it's going to be really exciting.
And these newly important executives in Xbox who would review all the pitches from publishers and developers. They said, I don't think that game is going to be able to make the transition from 2D to 3D.
They felt that it was complicated. They didn't really understand the user interface. They thought that it was based on a game that hadn't been all that successful. To my surprise, it was rejected.
And that game was called Grand Theft Auto 3.
Look at this shit.
It ended up selling 14.5 million units.
Looks better than the
remastered
remastered
game
versions.
of 2001 and would have been the top-selling game of 2002 if it wasn't beaten by its own sequel.
It was the pass heard around the industry. Despite seeing Grand Theft Auto 3 go to PlayStation, Microsoft was still well-positioned to attract other developers to its platform.
We needed a vibrant and strong third-party lineup of games that customers would love. And we wanted the industry to look at us as something that was going to be worthy of development. We wanted to have the very best games.
On March 13, 2001, Microsoft put their commitment to developers on public display at their GameStock event in Seattle.
Thanks and welcome to GameStock 2001. What you're seeing is a sneak peek at what's to come on Xbox. We're going to start off with a game whose vision was really just too big to fit in the PS2. So
Talk
we brought
that
it
shit.
over to the Xbox.
Talk that shit.
Our characters certainly aren't the
I remember this dude.
superheroes, that
I
we
remember
wanna
this
be.
dude.
They're more like the poor, sad schmucks that most of us really are.
Getting Oddworld. That was important. It was an established PlayStation franchise, beloved by the console game community.
That's the last damn Gambit there is!
We had a chance to work with an amazing creator in Lorne Lanning. He did all the voice acting for his own game.
So Munch had these things we called fuzzles, and they were like, me, 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 me. And Munch would be like, you got to come over and do this for me. You know, so and then Abe's like, come on, guys, let's go. And they were really vulnerable characters living in extremely dangerous worlds that you're trying to keep them alive, but when they get whacked, it's hilarious.
Next, we're really happy to announce our new relationship with one of the premier racing developer teams in the world, Bizarre Creations.
My favorite racer, PGR,
New
guys.
product for Xbox. Check out the
This is my
reflections on
favorite
this car. The
street
whole
racing
environment
game.
is completely mapped to the entire surface of this vehicle.
Project Gotham Racing was based on your style of driving as much as how
Kudos.
fast you cross the finish line.
For us, it was an opportunity to make this amazing, really accessible, fun, arcade racing game.
It's a really important part of our launch.
Hell of a
And
game,
that
guys.
was just the beginning.
Hardcore freestyle snowboard. This is only one mountain of 7 international
Yeah,
mountains.
who remembers
bringing to you in
MSR on the Dreamcast?
That
That's like
double-headed axe
the
is pretty wicked looking. We
PGR
can
kind
tell
of took
this is
that
a
formula,
hand-to-hand fighting game.
basically. But they changed the name.
Playing a football game, you want to kick your buddy's butt so hard he's going to wear it for a helmet.
And that's it for our show today. I hope you got to see everything that you wanted. Did you see everything?
Oh, shit.
Oh, I feel like I am forgetting something. What was it? Oh, Halo. Hey, how could I forget Halo?
Hey, everybody. So I'm Jason. I'm one of the co-founders of Bungie and the lead on Halo.
Bungie was a Mac first developer. That's where they started. That's where they'd had their success with Marathon and Myth 2.
But Bungie was also dealing with the aftermath of a catastrophe. Myth 2, one of their hottest titles, had an installer bug that could erase a user's entire hard drive.
Wow.
In order to fix the bug and keep the company above water and working on new games, they needed a serious cash infusion.
Apparently they had this thing called Halo. I hadn't seen it yet. Some of my guys had. They had multiple games into development, but all I wanted was this new thing that they were working on. So we did a deal and bought out the company, and they started to work on Halo.
That's really when true development began on what the game would be. When we were purchased, Halo was not a game. There was no real story. There was no real sense of what the gameplay tempo would be like. We knew it was powerful to control a space marine who moved fast and could jump into a sophisticated vehicle and, haul ass around this alien world. And that was it.
I think, Jason.
People knew about Halo. They knew that we'd been acquired by Microsoft. They knew
Looking
about
like me,
Xbox.
bro.
They knew we were still working on the game. That period of getting Halo from a series of prototypes to on a disc playable by an Xbox was just a mad rush to get this game done. But there was this excitement that we had something special.
It makes me very nervous to actually play this for you. Welcome to Halo on the Xbox.
We started off that demo showing you flying to the land in a Covenant ship, running around the environment, getting in a vehicle, doing all those, building block Halo things. We had our test environment, what we call the B30, the island map in the middle of the water with Halo in the background. It was just fun to play.
That was the shit, guys.
GameStop was that real first coming out party for us. And it was just that moment where I think the whole organization began to wake up to, oh, there's something really special here.
Thank you. That's it. Good night.
Yeah,
Xbox
Jenkins.
had made
We
a
had
high-risk
MSR
bet
as well
on
on
Halo.
Dreamcast.
At the time, first-person shooters were considered PC games. The only right way to play was with a keyboard and mouse.
At the time, people thought, well, how are you going to translate, mouse and keyboard game into a console game?
Dual stick first-person shooters had almost never been done on a console.
I remember right before the demo, Ed was very clear. He's like, hey, when you're playing, make sure that people see the controller. What we need to demonstrate is you can play a shooter with thumbsticks maneuvering around the environment.
You can go back and you can look. Adamant blog posts that shooter games like Doom would never work with a game controller.
Can people actually play a first-person shooter on a controller like this? Is the audience going to accept it?
While gamers wrestled with the idea of a first-person shooter on a console, critics also keyed in on a not-so-tiny issue.
I don't like the controller. Unfortunately, it's big. I think it's too big.
The Duke, they call it. The Duke wasn't a small controller. It didn't feel cheap.
I remember me and my bro when we went to get the
You had to have
Xbox.
gorilla hands to work with this thing. It was the
Beast of
industry's
a
biggest
fucking
game
controller
controller.
that was.
The Duke controller was like a newborn baby. I mean, the thing is like 9 pounds, 3 ounces. You had to kind of hug it.
As an adult with big hands, you can hold it farther back and it's really comfortable and cool.
It was done bass-ackward, as most things were on the original Xbox.
To get to that design, we kind of used the human factors ergonomic approach.
For those of us with smaller hands, we all thought, oh my God, did all these guys just sit in a room and go, oh, yeah, this is going to be great?
It was like, oh, yeah, this is totally not going to work for us. And it was like, okay, this is a problem.
Perhaps we didn't take into account a full range of hand sizes.
There's no way we could ship Duke in Japan. People couldn't use it there. There was almost a plea, Carlson, you've got to find a way to make this smaller, please.
We knew it wasn't the right thing, but we didn't have enough time. E3 was coming up, and so we had to go with what we had.
On May 17, 2001, global gaming's biggest event, E3, kicked off in Los Angeles.
E3 is clearly the Super Bowl, the Olympics, the World Cup all rolled into one for the video game industry.
For Team Xbox, it was the most important public test for their new console before a looming November launch date.
We're trying to make an impression at E3, and we don't know what hardware we're going to be able to show. And are we going to try to show a lot or a little? Should we show games at all?
We were heads down, focused on having all of our games prepped for E3, and it nearly killed us.
It's Broadway, it's opening night. You're going to read the reviews the next morning, and you're either hot or you're a flop.
I was pretty eager to get to E3 and get hands-on with the Xbox. But your first time making hardware is painful. And what you demo and what ends up in the store shelves are often very different things. And so I was
Yo, baby,
really
what's happening? You can make it.
gonna be ready.
It's a pleasure for me to be the first to welcome you to Los Angeles for what I'm sure is going to be quite an exciting week.
So it's 8 a.m. in the morning. The hardware team is like literally using duct tape to get the box done. Sony had their event the night before and a party afterwards.
Oh shit. They're working them
This was going
street
to be our
corners.
coming out party. And we now have a hungover media group at 8 o'clock in the morning coming to see Xbox. That is not where you want to be.
We've made Xbox a reality. And you can see here, if I slide this down, Xbox itself. Now live and ready to go.
I walk out on stage and I do my first line.
And in fact, if I press this little button here on the front,
And then I, hit the magic button that's supposed to start the Xbox.
you'll see Xbox will actually start up. We can bring that video up. We can bring that video up.
And nothing happens. Nothing happened.
Well, if we could bring the video up, Xbox would be live and starting and running.
I didn't know what to do, so I just went on.
So it's with great confidence that on November the 8th in the North American market, you'll be able to go into retail stores.
In less than a year's time, you're going to release this thing into the wild and people are going to be able to play it and you're going to love it. And it doesn't turn on.
It was a devastating moment.
As the hardware planner, my heart just sank.
And you'll be able to get a box just like this with Xbox in it.
It was a disaster.
A legendary sort of press conference snafu.
We had to convince the press very quickly that we had a box that worked, and we needed to get their hands on these games as quickly as we possibly could so we could wash away that moment that we had on stage.
We're very excited about that.
But the disasters kept rolling.
The Xbox wasn't done yet. The graphics hardware that they were running on was running about half the speed of what we expected the final product to be at. Basically, I'm making excuses for it was slow.
That's crazy, that guys.
Microsoft had never had a meaningful presence at E3 before. The booth was packed.
We decided to show Halo because we feel like we have to show what's going to be our key title.
In terms of the games we were working on, Halo had the biggest role. And so it was the E3 demo on the floor.
So many people were coming in with huge curiosity about what it was capable of, and I was completely disappointed. I'm like, the frame rate's terrible. The split screen stuff, it's kind of cool, but it just doesn't feel like it's powerful enough.
On the show floor, the unfinished game seemed to fall short of its original promise of revolutionary gameplay.
Shit.
So now you have a bad launch event, and the key title that's going to carry the day looks bad, and people start to think we're crazy.
Oh, man.
Shortly thereafter, E3, Peter Moore, he's at Sega, and he says, hey, I want to give you our feedback from E3.
That E3 was critical for Sega to stay alive.
In February of 2001, Sega made the decision to discontinue the Dreamcast and focus exclusively on software.
Dumb shame.
Part of that transition included a huge bet to focus on making games for Xbox. But a disastrous showing at E3 from Microsoft meant danger for Sega.
As we were moving from being a first party to a classic third party publisher, we absolutely needed somebody like a Microsoft to get us through this difficult period.
And so Peter comes up to me. He looks at me and says, well, here's our feedback. Retailers aren't going to stock you, developers aren't going to develop for you, and consumers think the product's not very good and it's too expensive. I took it very personally. I'm the leader of the team. It's my responsibility. It's my obligation. And I felt like I failed. This is my resignation letter to my boss, Rick Belluzzo. I wrote this on Friday, May 25th, 2001 at 2:02 a.m. It starts off, my status on Xbox, importance high. This is not going to be an easy email to write, and frankly, I've postponed doing it several times. The short summary is that my direct involvement in Xbox needs to end, and sooner than either of us would like. I think this is both in my best interest and the best interest of Microsoft.
But Bill Gates and Microsoft CEO Steve Ballmer did not accept Robbie's resignation.
They just encouraged me to get it done and said, you've done a great job, keep at it, we're with you. I mean, there wasn't much more they could say, right? There's no advice they could give me. They were too far away to say, hey, go do this. The only person who could figure that out was me. I never told anybody on the team. Rick and Steve and Bill. They're the only people that ever knew. That gives you the sense how personally challenging it was for a person who hates losing.
100%, guys. That was some
Electronic
shit.
Arts. It's one of the biggest game makers in the world. And its CEO, Larry Probst, was quoted in the Financial Times as saying this, that Microsoft has a lot to do over the next few months. They are on a death march now.
I don't think anybody had an easy ride to launch.
All we're thinking about is getting the device done so that we can make launch date. If you didn't have console units on retail shelves for a holiday, you missed a year. That holiday was vital.
Yeah, this is what we wanted to know.
There were
These
a
documentary
lot of
goes,
late nights.
they
We
do
were
a
trying
deep
to
dive.
engineer and design something that we'd never done before.
We're building the technology, we're building the hardware inside.
The Xbox circuit board is about yay big. It had probably in the order of 800 parts.
Parts of the Xbox were coming from all over the world.
Like Hungary and Mexico.
You know, there were people who went and lived in China in a hotel room for weeks on end.
We would be flying back and forth with hard drives to get stuff back to test.
Microsoft had never shipped a console before. It turns out there's a lot of regulation everywhere in the world. You had to be certified by the right agency and approved.
Their approval took longer than we expected. Parts wound up getting delayed from suppliers.
It was every day come into the office, see a fire, try to put the fire out.
We were tracking the hardware, tracking the components, tracking our launch dates at such an accelerated pace.
It was chaotic.
Chaos, total chaos.
People themselves were doing Herculean things.
We would sleep at the office.
This was all happening in real time.
It just never been done before.
Xbox was the toughest job I will ever have or have ever had. I will never do it again.
Every day was a challenge, both sort of technically and professionally, but also personally.
You know, you were lucky if you had a personal relationship that survived launch. Mine did not.
It's kind of like you're on this horse that's bucking and you're thinking, okay, is this ever going to stop or will this be the end of me?
8 to 12 weeks before launch. We're coming in way hotter than anyone expected to.
We doubted whether the hardware is going to be done in time. We're not sure any of the games are going to be done in time. The ship is still on fire. The plane hasn't landed. All the metaphors for crashes you can think of. But in the end, that team believed.
There's no second try at the Xbox. So this was a Hail Mary culture. And if we were to succeed, it was going to be absolutely epic.
It's a touchdown.
November 15th, 2001, Xbox was released in Times Square.
Big party, guys. This was a big party for you guys.
We painted Times Square green. Everywhere you looked, you saw the Xbox green logo.
Xbox was up on all these big billboards. One of those moments in your life you're never going to forget.
That's how you do marketing,
Here we
guys.
are,
That's how you
huge
launch a
line of
console.
Gamers down the street waiting to buy this Xbox.
20 years old, first time going to the city alone. I get on a bus and I show up in Times Square. I go straight to the new Toys R Us and I'm looking for the line. I'm prepared to stay there all day.
We worked with the city to open up the WWF restaurant across the street from Toys R Us Times Square. And that's where all the gamers came first.
Yeah, them
They
Xbox
have
shoes, I'm
Xbox
like,
consoles set up
look at these
everywhere. They
motherfuckers.
pretty much just allowed all the gamers to hang out and play and test out all these games.
Bill wanted to be on site. He wanted to help hand over the first console.
Bill Gates is down at a gaming system, shook my hand and said, "You ready to play?" And then we were playing Fusion Frenzy. And Bill Gates made a comment that he had actually taken 2 weeks off of work just to practice this game. He wanted to beat the gamers.
Does anyone know what the shoot button is? Hey, I think. Hey? Let's check.
He couldn't beat me. I absolutely took pleasure in beating Bill Gates, yes.
Thank you for this. Been waiting a long time.
Everybody got a tag on their wrist, and when your color was called, we brought you across the street to Toys R Us, and Bill was there to hand out the very first Xbox.
Amazing.
Tonight's kind of a celebration. It's after a lot of hard work.
So they count down. Bill Gates has it rung in on the register. Price is up there, $299.99.
4, 3, 2.
One hits and he hands me the box and says, "Don't worry, I'm buying it for you." And I turn around with even more excitement and raise my
That's
prized
amazing,
possession
guys.
over my head.
Edward Glucksman became the first gamer in the world to ever own an Xbox. It was a magical night.
I'm a 20-year-old kid looking for a console. That's all I wanted to do. First time going to the city alone, I managed to get sent home in a limo.
It's a celebrity. Every night. That's right.
That's crazy, guys. Imagine that being a 20-year-old kid.
They actually did it. You know, Microsoft actually built and delivered this thing.
The feeling was like, crying level of exhaustion and intense pride for the thing that we had made.
There's never been a prouder moment in somebody's early career. I still have goosebumps today thinking about it.
I tell people that faith is a force multiplier. That team believed. And because that team believed, Xbox got done. If that team doesn't believe and they're just there doing their jobs, we never finish.
That small group of big personalities managed not only to convince Bill Gates and the board that we wanted to get into this nascent industry, but they also managed to get an entire organization of game people created and pointed in the right direction.
Go in the subway. The whole station was covered in Xbox logos. I had to sit down and started to cry, and even Kevin got emotional.
It was an impossible task that we should not have been able to do. I was tremendously proud of it. But at the same time, that was the end of that special moment in time that we were all able to be part of. It was the end of an era.
With the Xbox out of their hands and into living rooms around the world, Kevin Backus and Seamus Blackley left Microsoft for new adventures in the game industry.
Microsoft Xbox went on sale at midnight.
Let's
But
go.
when it comes to video games, it's not the
Let's
system
go.
that
Look at
counts,
that,
it's the
man.
games.
Nobody actually really cares about the hardware. All they care about is the content.
To be successful, you have to give the gamers that platform-defining title that you had to go out and buy an Xbox if you wanted to play.
Halo was like this gem, like this was going to be the diamond we offered up at Xbox launch.
But remember, Halo showed up at E3, 6 months before the game was supposed to launch, with pretty serious frame rate issues.
Why is it running like internet video from the early 90s?
We got hammered for how it showed up on the floor.
This is our lead title. Are we going to actually launch something that is this terrible game?
I think there was a bunch of panic. People didn't see what they expected.
That was the part where people actually got super worried.
There was an incredible amount of pressure on Halo. If Halo wasn't a hit, then the future of Xbox really was in doubt.
And on that cliffhanger, thank you for tuning in to the debut of FanFest First Look.
First
I
three
really
episodes,
learned
guys.
so much about Xbox in those first 3 episodes. What about you?
Oh gosh, so much there, right? All the work they put in. Like, could you imagine trying to present
Crazy,
this to
guys.
like Bill and Steve back in the day when it just wasn't even a thing, right?
No way. I'm so grateful that
Yeah.
they were the team that did it and
That's right.
not us.
Yeah, so thank you to the team that did all that back then so that we could do this here right now.
Yeah, I had no idea how much that they went through to get Xbox started.
Totally. So I don't know about you, but after that, I'm really excited to see what the rest of these episodes have in store.
Me too.
6
I've actually
episodes.
heard that they're a doozy. And they cover everything from the launch of 360, Game Pass, and then all the way through.
Yeah,
Xbox
baby.
Today.
That's a lot.
That's
there
what
to
we
fit
want.
into 3 episodes.
Yeah.
So if you really want to, you can watch those 3 episodes again. So I, for one, want to hear all those names that Xbox could have been. Who knew that one of the code names would be the actual console name, right? That never happens.
Pretty crazy, but I'm glad that it did stick because
Yeah.
I just love the name Xbox
Right,
and I can't imagine it.
Right, exactly.
being
At this
anything
point, you
else.
couldn't imagine
Yeah.
it being anything else,
Right?
right?
Yeah. And as with every FanFest event, we are going to be sending out a survey so you can let us know how you liked
Anytime,
this
guys.
event
Anytime.
and how you like the first 3 episodes of Power On, the Story of Xbox.
I appreciate you guys being
So
here,
we
man.
want to thank you for watching together in this first look and sharing your Xbox memories. If you liked watching the first 3 episodes, spread the word. The full series drops tomorrow, December 13th, and you can watch it on Microsoft Movies and TV, IMDb TV, Redbox, the Roku channel, YouTube, and more.
From all of us at Team Xbox and the FanFest team, thank you for celebrating and being an integral part of the 20 years of Xbox. We'll see you in the new year. Take care.
Thanks. Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Yo, guys, that was that was amazing. You can tell they dedicated the first 3 episodes to Xbox launching. Look at that team. Look what they had to do to get where they were. Look, Microsoft as a company, all the the hurdles to get through that. Yeah, appreciate every one of you guys, man, coming by. I hope the stream was okay. I really hope the stream was okay for you guys. Obviously, StreamYards ain't the best all the time, but I hope it was decent. But guys, wow. And the next 3 episodes, I'm not sure if I'm going to stream them because obviously they'll be out. It's up to you guys. It depends what time it comes out as well because we got WBG tomorrow. But if it does come out early, I'll see. I'll take a look at it, guys, if you guys are interested in it. But that was amazing, man. The last 3 episodes is about the 360 launch, and we know what went down with that. That was the Red Ring of Death. But that was a crazy generation, just in gaming in general. What developers that jump as well, all the way to like Game Pass they talked about. Yeah, Giza Truth, others appreciate it, man. I'm glad it was good enough, to you guys to enjoy it as well. On top of that, and obviously launching the series, it's gonna be amazing. I want to see others. You know this, bro. We want to see guys in the chat. We want to see what Teddy Myson was doing, bro. We want to see that shit. Then we can tell these motherfucker ponies to shut the fuck up, and that's what went down. You know that, bro. That's what we want to see. That's the type of stories we want to see. and I hope they do air it. I hope they do in the last 3 episodes, which is coming out tomorrow. I really hope they do show it, man. Really hope, guys. But shout out to you guys, man. I know you guys are coming here. Halo Infinite. Halo Infinite is out. Everybody's loving it. You know, especially as Xbox guys, we fucking loving it. Shout out for 343. You know, they managed to get the game out. Was there a lot of hiccups along the way? Of course it was. You know, there's some changes with the engine, what they want to do with the game, make it even bigger than that. You know, and Joseph Staten, whatever his name is, he had to come and he made it happen. The game needed that 1 year delay, and this is the product we got. And I'm glad that everybody's enjoying it, man. A lot of positive. Yeah, definitely Halo Infinite time. I'm gonna get myself a cup of tea. Get me some biscuits, aka Jammy Dodgers, ginger nuts, whatever you want to call them, some cookies, and then play some Halo. Ozzy, what's going on, bro? Hope you well. But what a documentary! That was crazy, guys. I love it. Raiden Blade, that shit, man. You know, of course, bro. Look, we're happy to be fans, and where Xbox is at right now is incredible. There's nothing touching it right now, and where Phil has put Xbox right now, regardless of what people say about Phil, yeah, Giza Truth, you know it, Jammy Dodgers, bro. But what Phil has done right now, where he's put Xbox, and you have the CEO as well back in the Xbox. Xbox is gonna be a different beast. Mike Laddie, what's going on? Hope you well. It's gonna be a different beast with all that support. I really hope, Joey. I really hope they do talk about that Teddy Mice and shit, because you know exactly what I'm talking about, bro. They best talk about that shit, because that was the problem. I know it's fresh. I know it's fresh, but the best talk about that shit. If they want to do this documentary, they want to understand what Xbox went through, especially the Xbox One generation. You best talk about that shit. Don't hide that shit. Don't leave it to speculation. Talk about that shit like they did with the Xbox One just now. Fucking amazing, guys. Guys, some of you guys in the chat, man, how you finding Halo Infinite so far? The open world, like the semi-open world, some of the side missions, when you get your Spartan cores as well. You know, how you finding it? Even when you go get the armory as well. How you finding it, guys? I'll answer some of your questions. Joey, have you completed it yet? Yeah, look, every one of you guys are loving it, including myself. You know, you're giving it 9 out of 10. I think that's where it's landing so far. 9 out of 10, 9.5. Look, listen, we got the multiplayer as well. It's a double package. Other companies don't do that shit. They're still waiting on fucking factions. Let's keep it a buck. They talk about Halo was a 6-year development cycle. It had its problems along the way. There's some changes might need to happen at 343. They got rid of Chris Lee. Maybe certain people have to move out of the way. Maybe Jason Staten should take over the studio again completely. Maybe he'll stay there and carry on with Halo for the next couple of years until it gets better. Yeah, only on Xbox, 9.3 out of 10. No one let me see the shit, yeah. Oh shit, talking that shit. No one wants Teddy Madison. I put here. He's buried via the pigs, aka you feed them to the pigs. When you kill someone, and don't do this, guys, you don't kill anyone, you know. When farmers or something, when you kill someone or gangsters, mafias, 9 lives, what's good? When you kill someone, you chop them in pieces, and pigs will eat anything. And that's what they used to do back in the days. You know, people probably still do that shit right now, guys. To be honest, other things loving it 10 out of 10, bro. I'm happy. I'm happy the game has come out. It's done a great job, man. It needed that one. I do not care what anybody says. It needed that 1 year delay. It needed it, and this is the product we got, guys. Straight up, people are taking L's as well. Guys like Red Dragon, even those other motherfucking ponies, they were taking the piss out of the multiplayer. Oh, this Slayer won't be coming after the holidays. What happened? one of the marketing team comes out and goes, this Tuesday, you'll get to play these dedicated, playlist. Slayer. There was four playlist which is dedicated coming out for this Tuesday, and once again, they have to take an L. The shitbags, straight up. I've not finished it as well because my daughter hasn't been too well as well, so I've been looking after her. I had to get some medicine for her today, so hopefully she's feeling better now, slowly. But I'm gonna probably get another 3 hours in tonight. But amazing game so far, and guys, for a fact, let me answer. Sean, can you imagine? It's barely been a year, and look at all the things Xbox has done. Can you imagine? Imagine in a few years, bro. Imagine in a few years, shit. Next year is gonna be a bloodbath. I'm calling it. Next year is gonna be a bloodbath. Straight up. Geese of Truth, I appreciate it. Yeah, I went to did emergency thing, and they give antibiotics and other things as well. So yeah, she was really bad. She's getting better now as of today. As soon as I gave the medicine, she was getting better. But amazing, man. What else we got? Halo, guys. You know what I'm gonna say before I close the show out. You know that I'm not a big fan of first-person games, straight up. But for some reason, I don't know. It's always been even with the OG Xbox. When it comes to Halo, when it came to Halo at that time, it's just something with it. I don't know. It just hooked me. Maybe it's the way obvious Master Chief is. You're fighting alien grunts, brutes, then you fight elites and all that kinds of shit. The weapons, but one thing I love is the fucking music, the score for fucking Halo. When you enter in certain sites and you kicking ass, that background music is fucking amazing. They done a fucking great job on the audio as well. Paul AFC, what's going on, my brother? Hope you well. Yeah, like Giza Truth's the same. Me either, but Halo is the exception. And guys, let's be honest. Do you remember when people were saying about a grappling hook? The grappling hook has been done before on Titanfall. It's a gimmick, bro. That's a fucking game changer. When it comes to Halo, it's new to Halo, but it's a fucking game changer. I fucking love it. My was it grappling hook is fully upgraded. I'm working on the shield now. Bro, I love that grappling hook. The traversal as well. The way you grab enemies, electrocute them motherfuckers, then punch them whilst you come right next to them. I love that shit, man. Halo is fire. You feel more of a badass. When it comes to that grappling hook, you definitely feel more of a badass. And that's what Master Chief should be. A bad motherfucker. Fucking up these people, straight up. Yeah, Paul FC, I'm glad you're loving Halo, man. I know a lot of people. Yeah, 1 second. Yeah, 100%. Halo is fucking awesome. And Gears of Truth as well. They perfected the grappling hook. I fucking love it. Sapo, what is going on? The grapple shot. OMG. It's hard to imagine that. Listen, you're 100% right. You're 100% right. It's fucking. Imagine going back without the grappling hook now, guys. Just as you said that I did that shit. Do you know what I mean? It's crazy, man. Crazy. Yeah, when it's fully upgraded, the grapple is legit, bro. It's legit. You can literally you can be like Spider-Man, kind of, like basically just swinging, climbing your way up big fucking metal objects, rocks, cliffs, whatever. It's amazing. Shock and punch with fully upgraded grapple look. Fire, guys. It's fucking fire. Oh shit, Ashram. Joey goes, Ashram is a WWE wrestler pulling up promos. Bro, every time he enter the camp, yeah, 100%, he's there talking shit, telling the people, like, do this, do that, don't fear. It's crazy, bro. But I love that. Especially if you got like Dolby Atmos headphones, if you got a Dolby Atmos setup, or just a good, really floor standards speakers. Amazing sound. The audio design in Halo, I feel like they've done a big improvement compared to the other ones, and good on them. I'm glad they managed to get the game out. I'm glad the game's at 87 right now. Should it be higher? Personally, it should be higher, but it is what it is. They still delivered a great game. Us guys are eating good this holiday. You know the other side ain't eating shit besides what they're eating on the street corners. You know that. You know what they're eating on the street corners. Them soft motherfuckers. Fuck them ponies. I made them ponies cry like bitches the other day. And do you know why? Because you know when Hellblade 2 came out, people were shook. They were shook that Hellblade 2 looked like that. That was gameplay. They were questioning it. They were saying, that's not gameplay. Is this game? No, that's not. It can't be. That's fake. That is fake. Straight up. And I was talking shit. Whenever they put a dodgy picture up, you know when the ponies put a 480p picture, pixelated picture of one of our games, you know what they do? They try to start some shit. So I did the same. I did the same with The Last of Us. I did the same with Ghost of Tsushima. And do you know what? Motherfuckers were crying. Little Lad was there backing me up on the streets, on the Twitter, fucking these ponies up. Many of you guys were talking that shit on Twitter. When they do that shit, bro, I did it back. And do you know what funny? What was funny? Guys came out of nowhere. Guys that don't even interact. You must have a shit phone. It doesn't look like that. Why are you doing this for? You know the game doesn't look like that. I said, who the fuck are you motherfuckers? I go, next time, they go, have you played the game? Boom. I showed my record, completed the game. Ghost of Tsushima is a good game. Don't sleep on a game. It is a good game. For that studio, for the first time going that big, it's a fucking good game. Straight up. But I go, boom, take a look at this shit. Completed it. And then they said, you know, why would you spread misinformation? I go, because the motherfucker ponies do the same thing. But you shouldn't. I go, no, fuck them. Straight up. I go, I don't even know you. I don't even interact with you. I don't even fucking follow you. Raiden Blade, appreciate it, bro. But you come in on my timeline, and I know which kind of which kind of people you follow, you motherfuckers. You follow the same motherfuckers that do the same shit when it comes to the Xbox game. Roof Randall, what's going on? Like you do the same shit when it comes to the Xbox game. You be liking it, be laughing, but you don't call them out. You don't go in the Twitter Spaces. You don't leave a comment saying that why have you done this for? The game doesn't look like that. Hellblade doesn't look like that. Forza doesn't look like that. Halo doesn't look like that. Z Black Rider, what's good? And they didn't have shit to say. Do you know what they said? Pull up your gamer tag. And I knew that motherfucker knew my gamer tag because he hangs around with that bitch ass King Trash, Queen Trash. So he knew already, straight up. But guys, I'm gonna close the show out. Shout out to every one of you guys as well. Look, Paul, I'm gonna do a video, but I've been lacking on my video because I want to play Halo. I've got like I might do a mini series. I might do a 3-part mini series. Do you know what? I'm gonna do it. Hopefully, I'll get it done by Sunday. Well, Monday, Tuesday, hopefully. Yeah, and I'm gonna put that video in with Colin talking that shit about Ninja Theory. I'm gonna put that in. I'm gonna do probably like a web series, a three part web series, mini series, probably 4 or 5 minutes long, and talking shit about certain topics, what's going on. If it's a Hellblade shit, Halo Infinite, or whatever's going on, this Xbox shit as well. We're gonna talk about it. I'll get on that, but I want to play fucking games. So guys, take care of yourself. Shout out to every one of you guys. We had up to 55 plus people as well. You guys are fucking amazing. Tomorrow, what's this? Yeah. I want to see that shit. I really want Raiden Blade. I really want to see that shit, bro. Honestly, I really want to see that shit. The best show that. The best, show that part where Phil had to struggle on the team as well. The best of the motherfuckers. Yeah, definitely, Larry. Yeah, I'm feeling a bit off as well, but it is what it is. It's the winter bug. The weather's changing. Earlier this year I had COVID as well. I got it really bad. I was off work for 6 months. So maybe my immune system is still weak at the moment. So it is what it is. But this stream, guys, I did it out of the blue. Honestly, came home, I looked at it, I go, do you know what? I can stream this. Why not? Fuck it. It might get taken down. It might get taken down, guys. But you guys here watched it live, which is fucking awesome. So I appreciate it. So tomorrow, the last 3 episodes will be out tomorrow. So you guys get to watch it on YouTube and all that stuff. I really hope to do a deep dive into the Xbox One generation as well, properly. I mean, when I'm in a deep dive, what was blocking the Microsoft budget, the fundings, 100%, guys. So shout out to every one of you guys. Guys, take care of yourself. Let me do my outro. Let me do my proper outro for you guys as well. Whenever you see these motherfucker ponies saying some dumb shit, and you know exactly what I'm talking about. Whenever you see these motherfucker ponies saying some dumb shit, make sure you bitch slap the motherfuckers. Make sure they step behind the line. When you bitch slap, I would say get the fuck behind the line. And when these ponies, you know, when they're working them street corners, you know what we like. We be like,
Yeah, motherfucker.
I can't hear that. For some reason, I can't hear that, guys. That's weird. That is weird. Why can't I hear that?
Yeah, motherfucker.
That's interesting. Sorry, guys, I can't even hear that part. 1 second. Can you guys hear that? That's very interesting, that.
Yeah, mother.
Oh, I can hear it now. For some reason, I couldn't hear that shit. That was weird, that. I couldn't hear that shit for a second. But anyway, whenever you see a pony working them street corners, you know what we be like.
Yeah, motherfucker.
And when these ponies out there twerking their motherfucking ass and putting their bitch ass hands out, we be like,
yeah, motherfucker.
And when these ponies put their bitch ass hands out once again and sell their $70 ass dollar Spartacus ass for those 3-tier fucking service, we be like, and on top of that, guys, talk that shit all day, every day. Tomorrow I'll see you on WBG. We'll be talking that shit. We'll continue talking that shit. Xbox is the fucking best. Fuck the ponies. Fuck every one of them motherfucking ponies on Twitter, social media. Let's go. Talk that shit.